Time being 6:30 p.m, I call the meeting to order and declare it opened. Introduction. In event of emergency, the building may be evacuated. You'll be required to vacate the building by the rear entrance and gather at the breezeway between the library and the art gallery. This is a council's designated emergency muster point. Under no circumstances is anybody permitted to re-enter the building until all clear is given and the area deemed safe by authorised personnel. In the event of an evacuation, a member of council staff will assist any persons present with a disability to vacate the building. His microphone's bouncing. Thank you. Item 1.1, apologies of absence. Mr. Chief Executive Officer, do we have any?
We have Councillor Peterson for lateness and Councillor Steadman for slight lateness.
Thank you. Can I have a mover that be accepted? Councillor Kinghorn, seconded by Councillor McDonald. Show of hands, all four. Carried. Work out his mic's bouncing. Item 1.2, live streaming and recording. This council meeting is being live streamed and recorded. By speaking at the council meeting, you agree to be live streamed and recorded. Please ensure that if and when you speak at the council meeting, that you ensure that you are respectful to others and use appropriate language at all times. Orange City Council accepts no liability for any defamatory or offensive remarks or gestures made during the course of the council meeting. A recording of the council meeting will be made for administrative purposes. Item 1.3, acknowledgement of country. I would like Councillor Powell to conduct the acknowledgement of country, if he would.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, councillors. I'd just like to acknowledge the country, but first of all, I want to bring some clarity, because there has been a few questions in relation to the welcome of country. As an Indigenous man, we have so many hundreds of actually nations across this amazing country that we call Australia. It was vitally important for thousands of years as we moved from one point to the next in moving across this nation, that there would be an acknowledgement of the nation moving on to another nation. It's vitally important that we do this in relation to that. And I think the very founder of this city, that named the city, actually worked that out when he actually put the headstone up here at you and I's grave, when three amazing words come from those on his headstone: honesty, fidelity and truth. Fidelity and courage. He had the courage to stand and support the expedition up into the tropics and provided safe passage in relation to that actually created a safe passage. So in relation to that there, I'd just like to acknowledge that we are gathering on the amazing country of the Wiradjuri people, acknowledge elders past, present and also upcoming. Extend that acknowledgement to any other First Nation, and we, knowing that Orange is a resettlement place, and I know many council staff are from across this amazing Western District. Some of them are Nyamba people, Yampa people, Gamilaroi people, Kamilaroi people, Barkindji people, Muluroi, Yorali people, and including acknowledge myself as a Inganai person, a Juru person, a saltwater person, and also a Kanaka person too. So thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Powell. Item 1.4, declarations of interest. Does any council would like to declare a conflict of interest in any matter for consideration at this meeting? Councillor Kinghorn.
Well, thank you, Mr. Mayor. Yeah, I just need to declare an interest in item 5.5, the Orange LEP 26 Listerfield Road, as my husband's business has done work on this site.
Thank you, Councillor. Councillor McDonald.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'd just like to declare a significant non-pecuniary interest in item 5.4 on the agenda. As I have family who operate a business, I will leave the chamber.
Thank you. Are there any other conflicts of interest? If any should arise during the meeting, please let us know. 1.5, opening prayer. We welcome Reverend Bob Cameron of St Barnabas Church to lead council in the prayer. Thank you.
Mr. Mayor and council members, can I also bring a greeting from the Orange District Ministers Association, of which I'm the chair, Wishing you all over this season, everyone who's gathered here, a truly blessed and joyous Christmas season. Let's pray. Almighty God, thank you for all those who give themselves in service to our community in so many ways. Thanks especially for the men and women gathered here as our elected representatives, both those who have joined the council recently and those who have continued to serve, along with all those who work with them and support them in the council administration. As they meet tonight, help them in all their deliberations to act with wisdom and understanding, integrity and decency, and with due regard to the needs of all their constituents, and especially to the vulnerable and disadvantaged. Help them to listen to each other well, and also to listen to community members who bring their concerns to their attention. At this time in particular, Lord God, as Christians around the world remember and rejoice in the news of your Son who entered into our world, we recall his declaration that he came into the world not to be served, to serve, and to give his life as a ransom for many. May the same spirit of selfless and sacrificial service direct our councillors in all that they say and do, and may they provide in their words, decisions and actions an example for us all to your honour and glory. All these things we ask in Jesus' name. Amen.
Thank you, Reverend. Councillors, we have two late items, and we need to resolve and permit those reports be heard in open session. I refer to items 5.16, response to questions taken on notice, item 5.17, 2024 financial statement. Can I have somebody move and second that these reports be permitted to be shown in open forum? Thank you, Councillor Greenhalgh, seconded by Councillor Mallard. Show of hands for. Unanimous. Thanks, councillors. We'll discuss those matters later during the meeting. Councillors, I would warmly like to welcome our local member, Mr. Phil Donato, and thank Phil for taking the opportunity and accepting the invitation to come along to address the meeting. If you'd like to...
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Yes, I will.
Bag if you like.
And a microphone.
Wow, great turnout. Great turnout. I'm sure you're not here to see me talk. Yes, look, thank you, Mr. Mayor, and I just wanted to take this opportunity to be able to come along and talk and address council and the community who is behind me here in what promises to be an interesting debate later tonight. It is great to see local government and local council being really grassroots democracy, the first level of government available to the community and one most open to the community. So great to see so many people here, for whatever reason you're here, to have your say, to be heard and to listen to the debate take place. So welcome to everyone here this evening behind me. But I'm not here to, I'm here to give basically an update on what I've been working on as a local member, and obviously to greet all of you councillors and congratulate you all on your elections and re-elections. I'd like to thank and congratulate Mr. Miletto, Tony Miletto, Councillor Miletto, on being elected Mayor, and also to Deputy Mayor Tammy Greenhalgh, who has recently been elected, and all the new councillors as well. It's great to see so many new faces getting onto local government. Over 60 candidates ran for local government elections here in Orange, and you are the fortunate number to be here to be able to represent our community. So it's a huge honour and privilege, I know, to be able to be elected to represent and serve your local community. It's not an easy job. Don't do it for the money. You certainly don't do it for the glory. You do it to try and make a difference to your local community. And I hear some murmurs behind me here, and it's interesting because you can't make everyone happy all the time. But as long as you do what you think is right and what's in the best interest of your local community, in my opinion, you can't go too far wrong on that. I'd also like to it'd be remiss of me not to acknowledge previous Mayor Jason Hamling. I don't know if he's watching tonight, He probably isn't, but I'm sure I speak on behalf of all of us to acknowledge the great contribution that Jason had in this chamber for 20 years. As Deputy Mayor, as Mayor, I got on very well with Jason, had an excellent relationship with him. I was sad to see him go, but completely understood the reasons behind it. He wants to spend more time with his family and do other things. But I always found Jason to be an admirable guy, very approachable, very accessible, very honest and decent. And sometimes in this sort of occupation, that's hard attributes and skills to find in a person. So Jason, if you are watching, I hope you're enjoying your time not on council, and look forward to catching up soon. But I'd just like to thank you for your over 2 decades of service, not only to council, but to the Orange community. It's been a busy year, another busy year, and I just wanted to discuss some of the things I've been working on, some of the highlights, some of the things that have been, that you may or may not be aware of, but I think it's important as your local member to be able to brief you guys on it, and I'm happy to take questions at the end if time permits as well. So think about that as I speak. Look, excuse me. We hosted Community Cabinet in Orange earlier this year. First time in over 2 decades where the Premier, Chris Minns, and his Cabinet team came to Orange. I think Maurice Emma was the last Premier to do that back in maybe 2007. It's been a long time, and that's not lost on me. And I do have a good relationship with the Premier and with his government. And the Premier, who I meet with frequently during when I'm sitting, we speak about a lot of issues affecting my electorate, and I did offer an invitation to him to come to Orange, and he embraced it. He said, let's take the whole ministry up there, the whole cabinet, and do Community Cabinet in Orange. And I think most of you were probably there that day. It was a great opportunity for all of our community to be able to hear, listen to the Premier speak, meet with ministers, and also an opportunity to ask questions of those ministers and of the Premier. He was very generous with his time. He stood up and took questions from the floor without notice, which is very rare. He is an exceptional Premier in my view. We don't always agree on everything, but as a decent individual, I think you won't find one as a Premier especially who is more easygoing, more approachable and more accessible than the current Premier, Chris Minns. So it was great to have him out here, him and his Cabinet. I know it was a big job to get them here, the logistics behind it. That's not lost on me, and I'm extremely thankful to him for doing that. As a result of that, different groups and departments and agencies and individuals were able to meet with ministers and discuss issues and concerns. And just the other day, as a result of the Push for Palliative meeting with the Health Minister, Ryan Park, I remember sitting with Janice Harris at those Q&As or those little forums that they held at the back where you could talk to ministers. And he said to her, I was sitting with Janice Harris, and he said, "What do you need? I've heard about you guys, the Orange Push for Palliative group. What do you need?" And Janice, quick as anything, straight off the bat, she says, "Oh, we need some cuddle beds." "How much are they?" "Oh," and she just picks a figure out of her head, $60,000. And they were recently, some of you may have seen them. They've just come into the health service in Orange. They are being used as we speak, and they are really, really important tools to have in the palliative care. First public institution in New South Wales to have cuddle beds in a palliative care ward. Allows family members to lay next to their dying relatives, in essence, in their last days, hours, minutes, and it's already been used by a lot of people, and it's made a big difference at a very difficult and sad time. So that's just one example, just off the top of my head, about that. I oversee also the flood recovery, Central West Community Leaders Forum for flood recovery for Newgowra, so Cabonne, Lachlan, Parks and Forbes local government areas that were devastated by the November 2022 floods. I chair the committee of elected members, of federal members, of the 4 mayors, overseeing the rollout of $100 million in state and federal government funding. We're in the process now of going through the housing package, which is a $40 million component, the transport component, and the community assets component, which together is nearly $60 million. has now gone out to those local councils to fund projects that were damaged during that flood. But it's not lost on me that the fact that it's been 2 years, and we're probably going to need more money. I don't believe $40 million will be enough for the housing package, especially when you compare it to what the Northern Rivers have received, albeit their flood was much bigger. They had 7 people drown and die in their floods. We had 2, tragically. But that's a battle I'm having with the government, both at the state and federal level, to get more money to help those residents in those communities. And that's things like buybacks, that's things like retrofits and rise-ups. Home assessments are currently taking place now in Eugowra. As of yesterday, I believe there was 35 or 36 home assessments completed, where architects go into people's homes, speak to homeowners, tell them what they need to do to mitigate the risk of future flooding or future damage of flooding, and that's going well by all accounts. I host a Community Awards Day at the Australian National Fields Day this year to recognise people that were recognised in Parliament. That was a huge success, with well over 100 in attendance, and we'll be doing that again in the early year. And also hosted an inaugural grant writing workshop, the second one coming up in the next few months, with professional grant writer in attendance of that, Mr. Whelan, the grants guy he's called. That was a great turnout. We had 35 or 40 people from different groups, agencies, departments, community groups, volunteers, looking for funding, looking for tips on how to make grant applications to be successful. And I'll be doing that again, like I said, in the new year. I purchased an AED outside my office. It did get stolen, but we did get it back. And that was back early in the year. It was great to see council come on board as well, and now they're right across the community, which is really, really important. They're life-saving bits of equipment that will really, in times of need, if someone really needs to get access to one, they're prominent. They're located around the town. I've seen many in my travels around, and I think it's a great initiative by council. I also hosted a educational forum with the Yellow Wiggle, Greg Page, in Orange. So people knew how to use one of these AEDs in the event that they needed to use one. That was well attended as well, and maybe I suggest council could consider looking at that as well into the future. Hosted the Rail Summit in relation to stabling of the bullet service here in Orange. I know previously this council was passed a motion or a resolution in favour of that, getting that service stabled in Orange. I believe now is the best opportunity we've ever had to get that to occur. With the current change of government, with the political landscape that we find ourselves in. I know Jenny Aitchison, the Minister for Regional Transport, is very supportive. Chris Minns, the Premier, when he was out here for Community Cabinet, I took him out to the train station. He got to see it. We're working through the process and the logistics. There's a few issues we need to get through, but I believe we are at the best stage ever of getting that service to our community. And that would be a game changer. Having a direct, seamless rail service daily down back to Sydney for us here in Orange would be a terrific service for us. I'm sorry? Very slow, is it? Okay.
No, Chris, no speaking from the gallery, please, while the local member is talking.
And so we're working on that. We had the Rail Summit. I know many of you were at that summit as well, and that was terrific. Mr. Mayor, I know you were at the JO meeting down in Parliament House. I hosted the second Central West JO meeting this year with all the the GM as well. All the representative local councils of the JO, Central West JOs, were in attendance. Premier also came along and spoke to that. He's very amenable to coming along and talking to that. They'd never had a Premier come before in recent time. Okay, so this goes to show the magnitude of, the input that we're having in this Premier, in this government. They're very interested to hear and learn and listen and see what they can do. As the Premier says, he's not from the country. He doesn't profess to be an expert from the country. They don't have many members in the country, but they're prepared to listen and learn and take on board what they need to do, which I think is very admirable. As a result of my over 2 decades of policing experience, I've been elected to chair the New South Wales Parliamentary Joint Standing Committee on the Ombudsman and the Law Enforcement Crime Commission. I'm also a member of the Law and Safety Committee, which is presently conducting inquiries on regional and rural crime. And we've had regional visits to North Coast, Bourke, Broken Hill and Wagga coming up. We also held an inquiry onto e-cigarettes which many of those recommendations were adopted by government and we've now seen enacted into law in relation to compliance of what was up until recently a fairly unregulated market. And these e-cigarettes and vaping is going to be a huge issue going forward, especially for our young people. And that's what it's targeted at. They're targeted at our kids. We don't know what the long-term health implications will be, but we do know that many of these vapes contain carcinogenics, contain chemicals, contain harmful ingredients that can do no good to anyone. So it was great to see those recommendations from that committee were taken on board and were introduced into legislation. I also introduced a virtual fencing legislation, which is presently before the House. That will be a game changer for the ag sector. I led the campaign for the Justice for Biddy Porter, sponsoring the 20,000 signature e-petition in Parliament. Biddy Porter was a beautiful young girl, tragically killed, lived on the outskirts of Orange, killed in northern New South Wales by someone known to the family. It's such a sad case. The family came and spoke to me about this matter to see what I could do to help them. They were calling for a coronial inquest. Or calling on a whole range of different things and overviews of various government departments, whether it be the DPP, Victim Support Services, the forensic pieces under the Mental Health Review Tribunal. And as a result, we only just received news in the last couple of weeks from the state coroner. The coroner has decided to hold a coronial inquest into Biddy's death, and that's a huge accomplishment. And hopefully we don't want to see a repeat of what happened to Biddy or things that, had they been action taken earlier, would have prevented Biddy being tragically murdered. We saw also the tragic death of Molly Ticehurst, she lived in Forbes, a DV offence. That had huge ramifications not only across this region, but also across Australia. But New South Wales especially was very quick to react in terms of and adopt my calls for Molly's law in terms of bail reforms, the electronic tracking or monitoring of offenders who are on bail for serious domestic violence offences was one of the big things that I was pushing, and it was great to see that was now in law that the government took on board and introduced as part of a suite of bail reforms for domestic violence matters. There's also post and boast legislation, which is I don't know, many of you may or may not be aware of it, but something I raised earlier in the year with the Attorney General. I asked him a question in question time about young people especially getting on social media and posting themselves committing offences, i.e. stealing motor vehicles, getting in pursuits, conducting home invasions, breaking in as while people are asleep in bed. There was footage going around on Snapchat, on TikTok and on social media of these offenders, many of them children, young people, filming themselves and then putting it up on uploading it on social media as a form of trying to get some sort of notoriety and popularity amongst their peers. And I looked at it that this should be an aggravating feature on sentence that a judge or a magistrate could take into account. The Attorney General disagreed, but they have now introduced post and boast legislation. So talking to Brendan Gorman, the superintendent, only last week when I caught up with him, and I don't know if anyone's here has had an opportunity to look at the Bosca statistics for crime in the Central West, but they only came out last week, and very, very encouraging statistics. Crime's come down significantly in our region over the last quarter. And he put it down in part, a huge part of it, to the post and boast legislation and the fact that we're coming down harder on juveniles. They're getting bail refused, they're getting locked up. While they're locked up, obviously crime then drops. So that was something that I'm very proud to have, like I said, shown a lot of initiative in that regard to looking at areas where legislation can be changed to represent the social or represent what's happening in technology and social standards amongst our youth to drive down crime. Presently working on new robotic medical equipment for Orange Health Service, new operating theatre for Forbes Hospital, and a whole suite of other things. But that, in a nutshell, I guess, and I'm conscious of time, is some of the things I've been working on for the past year or so. Other issues which I just want to raise briefly, I know there's a lot of crossover sometimes with local council and state and federal parliaments or politics. And I wanted to discuss the sports precinct, and it's great to see it now progressing. I was critical of it the other day in terms so far as the length of time it's taken, but it's great to see. I know I've been getting regular updates from the GM that it's now progressing all steam ahead, which is terrific. This is a once-in-a-generation opportunity. We will not get this opportunity again, probably in my lifetime, to build something like this with the money that we've got. And we can't, in my opinion, we shouldn't hesitate on what we need to do. We really need to be proactive and get this project delivered ASAP. It goes back to 2019 when it was first announced, and it's had a series of changes and it's morphed. I get all that, and reasons for delay and COVID and all those sorts of things. But we really need to get on with the job, and I'm great to see it's progressing now to the stage we're up to. Now, I just wanted to also discuss housing. That's an issue, obviously, both at a local government perspective that you guys have a fair deal of influence over, but also from a state government perspective. We need more homes. We need more housing options, both affordable, social, but more homes in general to meet the demand that we've got. Well, for our young people, for our seniors, for our whole community, our whole broad cross-section of the community. Housing is a really important issue. And that's something that, we really need to look at. I know Council's got the Landcom arrangement going on, which is absolutely terrific, but we do need to keep our finger on the pulse in relation to finding options available, whether that be disused buildings, whether they could be retrofitted or converted, or, I often think about it, Bloomfield and all the buildings. I know it's not that simple. I know there's a lot of things that need to happen, but we really need to make that a focus. The state government's put $6 billion in the last budget, the biggest allocation in the state budget history for housing, affordable housing, social housing. So that's a key component that I hear. It's often difficult for people to find places to live, to rent, to buy that fits within their budget. And without a home, that really is the cornerstone of what you need to have that security, to have that place where you can settle down. So I think that really needs to be something that we really look at. I did look at and Mr. Mr. Waddell, I did get some statistics from Department of Planning just in relation to DA approvals and the number of DAs, because I often hear, and I've gone through a DA process myself in terms of how long it can take for DAs to get approved. Orange does fall within the acceptable range of around 95 days. You can take a breather there, but only just. And the statistics are that in 2022-23 financial year, 374 DAs were lodged. The average assessment was 87 days. In 23-24, 270 DAs lodged. The average assessment was 97 days. Compare that to Bathurst, town of similar demographic and size in population. 413 DAs were lodged in 22-23. The average assessment was 62 days. And in 23-24, 329 DAs were lodged, 66 days. You compare that to Dubbo, also a town of probably slightly larger population, I should say. In 22-23, 697 DAs lodged for 55 days. And in 23-24, 588 lodged for 49 days. They are quite very good figures. But I also look at places like Tamworth. Their average DAs are 148 days, certainly for last year for approval. Queanbeyan, 183 days for approval for last year. Bega Valley, 156 days for their approval last year. Wingecarribee, 216 days for their approvals last year. So you're not too bad compared to some of the others, but certainly just locally here, I do hear it, and no doubt you guys do as well as councillors, whether it's from developers or mums and dads or people waiting to build a house or do extensions, whatever the case may be. DAs is often brought up, and often it's people paying interest, whether it's not just developers, and you think, well, developers have got plenty of money, but they're often paying interest waiting on DAs to be approved. mums and dads and families, or could be renting, could be living with their mum and dad. All these things where, we're sort of waiting on these hold-ups to be fast-tracked. So just something to keep in mind. The only other thing I really wanted to talk to before I'm happy to take questions, and it'd be remiss of me not to because I've been raising it for a long time, is mountain biking on Mount Canobolas. I know there's a few of you that are not supporters of it, but I think it's a wonderful opportunity that we potentially could see here for our community. I mean, anyone who's been out to Glenwood State Forest and has seen what's happening in the popularity of mountain biking out there at the Gullibinia Trails, the amount of people who are going, they're now holding major tournaments, meet, I suppose you call it, not tournaments, riding events where they're drawing international and national competitors from right across Australia and overseas. We have a huge opportunity, and I think it could be, if done the right way, it could be done to appease everybody, I believe. It shouldn't be this lock it up and leave it approach. I believe it could be managed, it could be balanced, and it could be negotiated and done in a really, really, really decent way, similar to places like in New Zealand where the Maoris have really embraced it, and it's a wonderful network of trails over there, and through Maori land, a lot of it. There's alpine environments down in Kosciuszko National Park, in World Heritage listed Kosciuszko National Park, where we have mountain trails, mountain biking trails. So it can happen. It can be done. It just needs a bit of political will to do that. But and it basically just ties in finally with, I believe one of the big key components, certainly that I try and push, is health and fitness. Health and fitness fundamentally is the cornerstone for having a healthy community, an active community, one that's not a burden on the public health system, one that includes all the community. It's so good for your physical and mental health. Health and fitness has really got to be, and having the network of trails now, pathways, which is terrific. See council building pathways, people being able to walk, ride bikes, go for runs, do all that, having the facilities, the equipment and the infrastructure in place for people to be able to exercise and be active, I think is a really important feature for our community, and I think that's a real draw card to our local community as well. So that's basically it. I'm open to any questions if anyone's got any questions they wish to ask. Yes, Councillor Duffy.
Yeah, thanks for your presentation. I've got two questions. The first one is I'll go to the DAs first of all. I mean, I thought Dubbo and Bathurst are pretty good actually. And then when you look at ours, it's another month later, and a lot of our developers are complaining about that as regards to the quickness that we can get them through. But I noticed what you mentioned, the other council areas which are huge.
Yep.
Now, does the Minister for Planning have any in mind to actually revisit and use a stick to make these things happen?
Yeah, look, I can't speak on behalf of the Minister for Planning, but they are, I've got the statistics here. I'm happy to share them with you. They do look at them. I'm not sure. It might be, council staff would probably be a better place to answer that. But, it is something that does get raised in Parliament from time to time, in question time especially. The government is closely looking at it because they know that often that's an impediment to people being able to move into housing, or housing's being approved. People are renting, they're paying interest, they might be waiting on living with their mum and dad, and so as to what the government does, I don't know. That's a matter for them. They'd have to answer that, but they are monitoring it. Let me put it that way.
The next one is, you mentioned the bullet train going from Orange to is when the decision comes out and the working papers are out, the academic of what's going to happen, or what the presented to us, the public.
Yeah, look, I think there was a briefing the other day, so they're working through that day that we had the hearing, the forum, and all the recommendations. They're compiling all that data and information, and they'll get back to us. I did tell Jenny Aitchison that, we want to see this done. ORAG have been pushing this for many, many years, right? And I said to Jenny, ORAG want to see it in their lifetime, right? We don't want this to be kicked down the can 20, 30 years, right? So there's an importance in getting this done as soon as we can.
Thank you. Are there any other questions? If there's not, councillors, would you please thank the local member for coming along here tonight? We appreciate his time.
All, and wish you all the best for the new year, and have a great festive season and enjoy the rest of your night. Thank you.
The council meeting will now adjourn for the conduct of the open forum. Tonight we have 9 registered speakers and I'll be allowing 4 minutes per speaker. Addressing the council, speakers at the public forum must comply with the Code of Meeting Practice and all other relevant council codes, policies and procedures. Speakers must refrain from engaging in disorderly conduct, publicly alleging breaches of the Council's Code of Conduct or making other potentially defamatory statements. If I, as chairperson, consider that a speaker at the public forum engages in conduct type referred to in clause 4.20 of the code relating to inappropriate behaviour, I may request that person refrain from the inappropriate behaviour and to withdraw from unadversely apologise for any inappropriate comments. Where a speaker fails to comply with the request, I may immediately require that person to stop speaking and return to their seat. Speakers should be aware that Orange City Council records and live streams all meetings. There may also be media outlets present who will be filming and photographing. Agreeing to attend to speak at the council meeting, speakers are reminded the need to ensure that all comments are respectful to other people, councillors and staff. Orange City Council accepts no liability for offensive or defamatory comments made by speakers. I'll ask that you be respectful of this chamber at all times here tonight. Now, the speakers I will introduce as they go along. So, first of all, the speakers, I'd just like you to introduce to our councillors. I have Councillor Whitten, Councillor Greenhouse, Deputy Mayor, Councillor McDonald, Councillor Power, Mallard, Councillor Ruddy, Councillor Stedman, Councillor Judge, Councillor Duffy and Councillor Kinghorn. Speakers will be heard in the order of registration as received. First speaker is in relation to item 4.1, notice of motion, finding of the Pound Inquiry New South Wales Legislative Council Portfolio Committee number 8. And we have Danielle Hass from Blue Doggy Daycare and Grooming.
Diesel and blue. Thank you.
Oh, sorry.
4 minutes.
Good evening, Mr. Mayor, Orange City councillors, Mr. Phil Donato, staff and community members. I'll try and race because I prepared 5 minutes, but here we go. My name is Danielle Hass and I was raised in the far northwest of Western Australia in the Pilbara, known for its mining, cattle and red earth. My subsequent career in the pharmaceutical industry had me living and working in Sydney for 14 years, but in 2017 with my son, we moved to Orange for a tree change. In 2019, I identified a gap in the market and founded a multi-award winning business in the animal care industry, namely Diesel and Blue Doggy Daycare and Grooming. And I soon after joined the Orange City Council Companion Animal Committee, where my knowledge grew rapidly in the many challenges of local government management of companion animals. Tell you my background so that you'll understand what led me here to Orange, that I've lived a life in numerous states and communities of Australia, as well as travelled to many countries for both professional and personal reasons, but never have I felt so impassioned by a crisis that I felt it's time to stand up and speak for what's right, especially in this case where the losers do not have a voice. I want you to imagine a world where we, as I now know, the not so average pet owners, are going about our days doing what's the right thing by our pets, making sure they're microchipped, making sure they're registered with our local council, we visit them to the vet if they're ill or for their annual checkups and vaccinations, they're well fed, possibly clothed, and they're housed with care and compassion. And then imagine a world where you discover that that's not the status quo for all companion animals in New South Wales. So there is in fact an unprecedented crisis in the management of lost, feral, impounded and surrendered pets. It's my understanding that due to mismanagement and poor modernisation of legislation and funding, dogs and cats primarily are in crisis and therefore subjected to sustained and preventable animal cruelty. Animal cruelty. These delays, combined with the economic downturn, have led to a critical situation where pounds and rescue organisations are full, many are closed, resulting in life for thousands of animals in either long-term fostering or worse, in a cage life at pounds or rescue organisations, or arguably the lucky ones, the unprecedented rate of euthanasia. In the average 24-hour news cycle, there are many worthy topics these days, some of which will be discussed tonight, that consume our thoughts and our worries. But this one has barely cracked a mention. Because unless you're a stakeholder that is exposed to this daily tragedy, you're very unaware. But I believe if they knew and if you knew, you would be outraged and you would demand change. The good news is that those that did know, they demanded it. A parliamentary inquiry which started in June 23, and after 16 months, 2 full days of face-to-face hearings, numerous site visits, 139 written submissions from councils, rangers, volunteers, community members, animal welfare organisations, the RSPCA, the Animal Welfare League, rescue organisations, foster families, protection societies, vets and veterinary associations, just to name a few, came rolling in and the final report was presented. It was presented to the New South Wales State Parliament on October 18, 2 months ago, with 4 key findings and 24 recommendations. Any one of us can read that report. You can watch the hearings, you can read the submissions, and you'll be horrified when you hear about dogs and cats overcrowding in facilities that have no other option than to euthanise them to allow room for the next emergency intake. Most Central West pounds have closed their doors and can take no more. Many Central West pet owners in the past year have travelled from those towns to Orange to surrender pets as the only facility open. But we too now have closed our 24-hour cages, and the purpose-built large facility in Bathurst Park has also closed its cages due to the dumping of 30 dogs recently in a 24-hour period. Sadly, one mother dog was dropped with half of her puppies and the other half she birthed whilst in the dumping cage. So now people who can't even care for their pets just have to let them out the front gate and hope for the best. This is not just in the Central West, this is statewide.
Ms Haas, can I just hold you up there? Can I have somebody extension of time? Councillor Whitten, you're right to proceed. Thank you.
Thank you. Let me just give you a quick bit of anecdotal evidence and then I'll finish. Rescue and rehoming organisations have no code of conduct or regulation, in fact, nor do pounds. Everyone is doing their best according to their budget and their moral compass. I've read that Cowra Pound has a shed in a field with no heating or cooling year-round on concrete floors. I've read shelters where rangers place animals in for the weekend. No welfare checks are made until Monday. There's no sanitary cleaning. There's no fresh food or water resupply over the weekend. And by my calculations from conversations I've had with the inquiry and the available data, I believe conservatively that our council has sadly euthanised 600 dogs this year. But I don't believe that this is an outlier in this state from what I've read. And I know firsthand how hard this council is working to address this problem on a daily basis. It's an animal tsunami across this state. So councillors, I hope you can now understand briefly what the gravity of this situation is. This problem needs addressing and it starts with now and it starts with this report that is on the motion. And the New South Wales government realising their failure and knowing that our community, the ratepayers and their constituents would be horrified if they knew the details of the current crisis. So it's time. The lack of transparency in this world is the enabler of this, and it's time that a key societal area of our government, funding and the attention is given to it that it deserves from those who claim to manage it for us.
Thank you. We have to call you up there.
That's it. I'm
Thank you
done.
very much.
Thank you.
Next speaker will be item 5.10, the Rainbow Festival Project Plan, and we'll have Julian Owie, I should say. My apologies.
Good evening. Thank you, Mr. Mayor, councillors and council staffs for having me. My name is Julian Uy. I'm in favour for Rainbow Festival 2025 and for many more years to come. I want to say a big thank you to the Orange City Council and Orange community, making this year's Rainbow Festival a huge success. It was an eye-opening event even for myself and my family. My stepdaughter hasn't stopped talking about the great time she had had at Robertson Park. By the way, what drag show does not account for a fabulous time, whether for all ages or adults only? In the economics point of view, I was working at the street party on McNamara. Food vendors were sold out of food. The Blind Pig made $30,000 that weekend. The show lineup was fantastic. The weather did not stop everyone from having a good time. Let's just say there's no rainbow without rain. Let me share a true story from my own experience. My wife and I attended the Sunday brunch with drag queens at Groundstone with a group of friends. We were all having a good time. Of course, plenty of photos and videos were taken that day. I posted a video of me dancing in a fabulous Chico Roll t-shirt with one of the queens on my personal Instagram page. 2 days later, someone who has been against the Rainbow Festival screen recorded my video, posted on Spread the Word Facebook page, and I received an overwhelming 3,000 views. Speaking of an overnight sensation, I went viral. I got trashed so badly. The event was being trashed. Organizers were trashed. The venue also trash. But guess what I did? Instead of carrying on like a pork chop, I gave free Chico Roll at my cafe. What makes my comeback epic? People actually came in to purchase Chico Roll instead. Woohoo! Another note, my stepdaughter got spat on and was told her mother doesn't love her because she loves another woman. Happened on the last day of school in 2023 when the last bell rang and we didn't have a chance to do anything about it. And this thing sticks. So we have to cop it because others don't educate their children that love is love. The community, families, and children, everyone benefits from an event like this, both socially and economically. Local businesses has a boost in sales and branding. Employees has a boost in wages. Community has a boost in awareness. Family has a boost in understanding. And children of all ages, including teenagers, know they are not alone. My own stepdaughter thought she is the only child under 12 in Orange that has gay moms. That day she saw it for herself. She isn't alone. I leave you with a quote from Taylor Swift song, "Sunshine on the street at the parade, but you would rather be in the dark ages." Like, can you not step on our gowns? You need to calm down. So, whatever your or our sexuality is, we are all human first. I am Julian, in favor of Rainbow Festival 2025. Let's do it. Thank you.
Cheering, please, that'd be greatly appreciated. The next speaker is Jennifer Hughes. And again, gallery, I'll ask that no comments be made to any of the speakers when they're coming up. Otherwise, you may be asked to leave the chamber. So thank you very much.
Thank you, Mayor Miletto, councillors, for the opportunity to speak this evening. Some of you might remember me from the last time I spoke, opposing council's financial support for this year's festival. I understand we have some newcomers, so please know that all of my comments tonight aren't directed at you. I've been deliberating for days which approach to take tonight, as I feel everybody learned a lot from this year's event, and I'm hopeful that some councillors have seen the error of their ways. The blatant waste of money on a minority group of radical left-wing activists has already failed. We tried that last time, but 2 councillors only voted against the motion, and I thank councillors Duffy and Peterson for their support, listening to our concerns and voting wisely. Then considered discussing the abhorrent behaviour at this year's event and the subsequent police investigations lodged by concerned members of the community, but the police were marching also, so I figured that was pointless as well. I'd like to ask any member of the LGBTQI community here tonight to address the footage which we've just heard about, which I also saw on social media at this year's event of drag queens humping each other on Sunday morning at the Groundstone Cafe, and the famous vibrator xylophone game at the family-friendly event in the park. How exactly does this make your young members feel safe? Remembering this year's funding came from a youth support program. I considered trying to convince you how offensive it is to see such a waste of money during the most crippling cost of living crisis Australians have experienced in decades. But then I realised that there's no point whatsoever because most politicians and government bureaucrats aren't affected. I then thought about asking the LGBTQI to hand over the money, the $50,000, to the homeless members of our community living on the streets or helping domestic violence victims, but I know how the left operate and knew that I'd have no chance of success with this either. So tonight, I'd like to focus on all of you, the CEO and councillors of Orange City Council. It goes without saying that Australians are fed up with every level of government. A politician recently summed up the state of play perfectly in Parliament when he said, and I quote, "Australians hate us all." This isn't about the LGBTQI or festival at all. This is about the gross abuse of power by the CEO and council staff and the ego of a few councillors. Why isn't this event treated like every other event seeking council's financial support? Why should the Rainbow Festival get $50,000 when everyone else who applied following the correct procedure got 10? Food Week, $5,500. National Field Days, $10,000. The Sustainable Living Expo, $4,000. The Wine Festival, $10,000. Who at council is driving this? I think some of us know the answer to that. Does this now set a precedent that everyone who has applied for money gets the same? How do you justify that? The last time we were here discussing this matter, it was an absolute circus. I've never seen political grandstanding like it. And what council did was actually divide the community and made it an us versus them situation, which it wasn't. It was actually an us versus you. 9 councillors didn't have the courage to stand up for what was right. There were approximately 10 speakers for the LGBTQI community that night, and not one of them even addressed or understood what we were talking about. They didn't address the motion on the table. They were so blinded with their hatred, and all they wanted was a war. And guess what? Orange City Council, you delivered it to them. We weren't there to discuss them personally. We were there to discuss whether or not council should pay for the event. 2 very, very different issues. How is it possible that none of you who were present there that night didn't understand that? Except, of course, for councillors Duffy and Peterson. If it was a professional debate that night, our side would have won hands down, based on medical advice from our
Can I
town's
just hold you up there for a sec, please, while I ask somebody to approve extension? Councillor Judge.
I think it was 4 minutes and 8 seconds when I trialled it this afternoon. I'll be quick. If it was a professional debate, our side would have won hands down based on medical advice from our town's most esteemed medical practitioners, statistics and simple common sense, and the fact we discussed the actual topic, not some bizarre ideology. I believe the 9 councillors who voted in support of funding the event simply didn't want to look bad in front of the enormous crowd of rainbow faces with their placards. They didn't want to be unpopular, or maybe like me, they were simply terrified of what the repercussions would be if things and the vote didn't go their way. I remember a lot of security guards in attendance that night. How weak. Those councillors didn't even consider looking at the facts presented to them that night. They caused all that angst for nothing, as their vote was a foregone conclusion way before the meeting even started. Giving more money to this event than celebrating Anzac Day and your own forebears who fought and died for our country, along with Australia Day celebrations, leaves me speechless. I literally have no words for your lack of patriotism. I saw last night on social media that...
Ms. Hughes, that's your time up. Thank you very much.
Maintaining standards within our community should be the top
please.
priority, and I hope you all vote wisely this evening.
Thank you. Bernadette Allen. And I'll just
Evening.
remind the gallery there is no applause after each speaker. Thank you.
Good evening, Mayor Miletto, councilmen or council people, members of the Orange community, local artists, friends and allies. I'd like to introduce myself. My name is Bernadette Allen. I am a proud manager of Headspace Orange. Previously, a very proud manager of a domestic and family violence service and homelessness service. I stand before you today to express my full support and encouragement of the Orange City Council people to fully support the proposed Rainbow Festival project plan in 2025, inclusive of the expenditure of the $50,000 for this important event. Celebrating the LGBTIQA+ identity is not only a matter of recognition, but of fostering inclusivity, respect, and acceptance. The Rainbow Festival provides an opportunity for our community to come together and celebrate the diversity that makes us strong, while also sending a powerful message of solidarity to those who are still marginalised and facing discrimination. Support from organisations like Headspace, which are deeply committed to supporting the mental health of our community, of our LGBTIQA+ young people, underscores the importance of incentives like this. Headspace works helping young people navigate the complexities of their identities, ensuring that they have access to resources, guidance, safe places that they need to thrive. Headspace this aligns perfectly with the goals of the Rainbow Festival, and correct me if I'm wrong, Orange City Council's strategic plan, to create a supportive environment where every individual, regardless of their orientation or gender identity, can feel seen and celebrated. In a world where LGBTIQA+ people are still facing challenges, particularly when it comes to mental health, social acceptance, the Rainbow Festival is a beacon of hope. It is an opportunity for all of us to stand and show that Orange is a community that embraces everyone, regardless of who they are or who they love. The proposed expenditure of $50,000 is an investment into our future, a future where inclusivity is not only a concept, but a lived experience for everyone. It's about creating a space where young people can see themselves reflected in the culture around them, where the broader community can learn to appreciate and celebrate the richness of the LGBTIQA+ community diversity. I urge you, esteemed council people, to support the incentive, which will contribute to making Orange a more welcoming, vibrant, compassionate, and forward-thinking place for us all to live. Thank you so much for your time. I truly appreciate it.
Thank you. Our next speaker is Madison McLaughlin from Headspace. You have 4 minutes.
Good evening, everyone. I'm Hunter McLaughlin. I am a transgender person. I'm 21 years old. I am part of the Headspace Youth Reference Group, as well as the Rainbow Festival Advisory Committee. I work with a lot of young LGBT people as a part of, well, both of those positions, and I have been made aware of the actual impact of the festival of this year and how it's actually affected our community. And in short, honestly, the community feels a lot more seen and safer. Because really, when many young people in our community are LGBT, I, growing up alongside them, and from their own experiences, impact our mental health. Sorry, I just lost my notes. People love to talk about think of the children and similar sort of things, but really in the end, people don't like to think about LGBT youth. When in reality, when you're actually contested against by society, stigma, all of this hate, that vitriol that's spewed at your community, it impacts your mental health. We see it at Headspace all the time. Whether you actually personally agree with what LGBT people stand for or their gender, sexuality, or anything like that, it shouldn't actually be about that at a bottom line anyway. It should be about what the community wants. And considering the outpour of support, the amount of attendees at last year's Rainbow Festival, this is what the community wants. The community wants a safe space to be open and to be themselves. Thank you.
Thank you. Our next speaker is Leanne Benson.
Mr Mayor, councillors and staff, thank you for the opportunity to speak in support of Orange Rainbow Festival. I believe that the success of the inaugural event cannot be ignored. It was a positive and uplifting event for many of the LGBTIQA+ community and the broader community. Orange City Council provides support for many community events, examples Christmas carols, New Year's Eve, Australia Day, Anzac Day, sports, food and wine. Some of these events I don't support. Most of them I will not attend, but that does not mean I think they should be cancelled. All of these events are crucial in providing a diverse, inclusive and supportive community. It would appear that most of those opposed to the festival have used religion as an excuse or reasoning, or pseudoscience. Hate and bigotry under any guise needs to be called out and stopped. Whilst I support everyone's right to religious freedom, I am appalled by the blatant discrimination against the LGBTIQA+ community, these people. I would like to remind the councillors that this vote has nothing to do with religious freedom, but everything to do with freedom from religion. The Orange Rainbow Festival has many potential benefits for our city and our society. This would include financially lucrative for many businesses. It would be a positive publicity boost to our tourism, and it would be tangible inclusivity for those of the LGBTIQA+ community. All of these will result in improving many lives and could literally save some. Thank you for your time and your consideration.
Thank you. Our next speaker is Chris Dillon. You have 4 minutes, Chris.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. I wish to express the concerns that many of us have regarding the allocation of large sums of ratepayers' money to one particular group, especially at a time when family budgets are tight and the council's budget is in deficit. We don't reject any person. All people have value. But we do repudiate the claims that are being made to support the funding of this ideology with ratepayers' money. But firstly, as the spokeswoman for the Orange Christian Alliance, I wish to humbly address the professing Christians in this chamber who have been inclined to accuse us of hate and bigotry, saying that Jesus loves all people. Yes, Jesus loves all people. You state a foundational truth. But the love and grace of Jesus is not merely acceptance of all actions and lifestyles. It calls for a response. Scripture says that Jesus came full of grace and truth, not one or the other, but both in equal measure. An example is the well-known story of Jesus refusing to condemn the woman caught in adultery. But what is often omitted is this. He then instructed her to go and sin no more. Why? Because the love of Jesus does not condone sin. It confronts it, offering grace, forgiveness, and the power to change lives. I am aware there are ministers of the church who support this ideology. However, the church is not the ultimate arbiter of truth. Christians are not the ultimate arbiters of truth. The Word of God is. The whole counsel of God's Word is truth, not parts to pick and choose. To all of those who don't believe in God, I will appeal to your sense of justice equity and responsibility. Because whatever the source of these values, I do believe you all have them. As our elected representatives, you have the power, underpinned by these values, to make decisions that are truly equitable for the community as a whole, and reject the idea of showing favouritism to one group. It is indeed required of you. In a recent media release, the New South Wales government says they are, and I quote, putting forward reforms to improve transparency of council meetings, to ensure decisions are being made openly and in the best interests of the community as a whole. If the Rainbow Group wish to celebrate their lifestyle, equity and fairness to the community as a whole demands they receive no more council funds than any other group. Council say they have support for it. In the project plan to be voted on today, council staff alleges that requests for funding the Rainbow Festival, and I quote, represent 53% of all submissions received, including over 25 individual comments. I believe that was a total of 28 people, from a cohort of people who attended the last festival. On the other hand, independent polling conducted by Compass last year of 1,000 respondents over a broad range of demographics reveals that 74 to 78% oppose transgender ideologies. Council knows this. The community as a whole does not support Rainbow's festivals. And I quote from their RYIP application form submitted 30th of September 2020 for the funding of the last festival. Lack of tolerance for rainbow festivals. An innocent bystander might construe your concept of support is somewhat biased and deceptive. In seeking council involvement for these events, I have heard claims from some in the chamber that these events save lives. That is a bold claim, and the evidence does not support it.
Mr. Dillon, can I just hold you up there? Can I have somebody move that to be extended? Yeah, Councillor Duffy, thank you.
A recently released report by one of the UK's top consultant paediatricians, Dr. Hilary Cass, is at 300 pages the largest peer-reviewed systematic review of evidence to date on gender transition medicine. On the subject of suicide, the report says this: claims that gender affirmation prevents suicide were found to be without credible evidence. The idea that periodic celebrations of gender confusion will change that is patently absurd. Councillors, families are struggling to put food on the table. Can you look them in the eye and give large sums of money from their painfully tight budgets to a certain group to have a pride parade, a street party, sexually explicit alcohol-infused entertainments, and perhaps $80 per head breakfasts, as happened last time? That wouldn't just be a slap in their face. That would be a kick in the teeth. I trust you won't do that. Thank you.
Thank you. The next speaker is Mr. Noel.
Evening, and thank you for giving me the opportunity of talking at this. I am standing before you to talk in favour of the Rainbow Festival. And normally I'm able to do public speaking with society, but this one does. I have been a resident of Orange for 4 years. In that time, I have, as we all have, gone through COVID and all of the troubles that that came with. But it also gave a sense of isolation for those that follow the rules. In my time since COVID and trying to become engaged with the community, to be involved in activities, it's pretty clear that the LGBTIQA+ community remain marginalised. Now, this one affects me personally insofar that during the last council meeting concerning the Rainbow Festival, I received death threats that I should have a bullet in my head. There was also commentary online that we should be gassed, lined up and shot. I want you to think about that for a gassed and shot. That level of hatred for those that live here, that are a minority, is distressing and incredible. I am a clinician. I have worked across the world. I have attended sites of mass fatality, and I have seen death. I have seen trenches of dead people. I have seen body parts had to be involved in the collection of human remains in that role. The idea that I and members of my community, those within that LGBTI community, should be in that position, offensive. I appreciate sexuality, the minority, the LGBTI community is a minority, but there are so many other minorities here in Orange. We have those that are disabled, we have those that language is not English, that first language is not English. We have those who have different religions, different walks of life, different socio-economic backgrounds. All, to some degree or another, are a minority. But that does not mean that that minority is any less worthy of being able to draw breath. I would encourage council members to vote in favour of this proposal to continue the Rainbow Festival. I thank you for your time.
Thank you, sir. No applause, please. Our last speaker is Winona Gray Levitt. I hope I got that right. I apologise if I didn't.
Thank you. Good evening, councillors, community members. Thank you for the opportunity to speak today. My name is Winona Gray Levitt. I'm a proud Wiradjuri person, a youth mental health advocate, coincidentally a ratepayer, and now a proud member of the LGBTQIA+ community. Sentence is something I wouldn't think for a very long time I'd ever say out loud. And tonight I want to touch on a part of my lived experience and share my personal support for events that promote inclusion, love, celebrating diversity and acceptance. I grew up in a small town a few hours from here for the first 20 or so years of my life, before moving to be with my partner and calling Orange home. I've also spent the last 6 years volunteering and working with multiple organisations to use my lived experience of mental ill health in a meaningful way to work with young people and help them on their own journeys. Coincidentally, I've also spent a lot of time working at the local homelessness service, where statistics show that LGBTQIA+ members are more likely to experience homelessness due to stigma. The town I grew up in, the use of homophobic and negative remarks towards the LGBTQIA+ community was far too common and incredibly detrimental to my mental health. The only thing that growing up with these negative views on this community being spread loudly caused me was shame, agony and isolation. The confusion didn't exist around the person that I am, my gender or who I might love. But confusion existed as to how saying these things out loud could potentially change the person that I am in people's eyes in a negative way. I'll never forget the negative impact that the negativity surrounding the same-sex marriage plebiscite had on my mental health. And I'll certainly never forget the way that I was reminded of this at the beginning of the year with the discussion around this year's Rainbow Festival. There's a difference now, though. Between those times, I'm stronger now. I know who I am and I love who I am. However, I recognise that not everyone is as privileged in that sense to be living in that strength. And that's why I do what I do, so young people now don't have to go through these things seemingly alone. Events such as the Rainbow Festival provide hope. They show people of all ages that they are valid and literally deserve to exist, that they aren't alone. It helps to show people, just like younger Winnie with below rock bottom self-esteem, that she will be loved, accepted and worthy. And that's something I never thought I'd say out loud. My life would have changed for the better had I been able to attend an event like this when I thought I was alone. Being part of the LGBTQIA+ community isn't a choice that one can make. Ignorance and hatred is. With that being said, I want it to be noted, orange is named the colour city, so it's important to embrace the whole rainbow. Thank you.
Thank you. Council now will resume. Sorry. Page. Councillors, what I propose to do is move item 5.10 up the order. Can I have a seconder? Councillor Duffy. Thank you. Yeah, sorry. Sit down, please, Councillor Duffy. I need to have a vote. All in favour? Thank you. Councillors, there's a recommendation on...
I'll be declaring a pecuniary health proudly Headspace's Wales. Headspace is here tonight proudly in support of this event. So I would dearly love to stay in this debate, but I must.
Thank you, Councillor. Councillors, I'm happy to move the recommendation with a change in the value from 50,000 down to 30. Can I have a seconder? Councillor Ruddy. Councillor Peterson. We'll go with Councillor Ruddy. Any discussion? There being no discussion.
Mr. Mayor, I'd like to move an amendment.
The amendment, Councillor Duffy?
My amendment, I'm going to move an amendment.
Yes, I know that. What is it?
The Orange City Council require the Rainbow Festival Committee to form an independent incorporated body, make an application under the Events Funding Program to be in line with all other applications by independent incorporated bodies. When evidence is provided, authorise the CEO to approve the maximum of $10,000 for the event.
Thank you, Councillor. But what I might do is ask the Director for an opinion on or a comment with regards to incorporated bodies. Not quite sure I'm following what you're asking for, that's all.
Mayor, I'll second that amendment.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. If I understood what you just said, Councillor Duffy, what you're suggesting is that we would have a separate committee that would be incorporated to organise this event, which is very dissimilar to other events such as New Year's Eve, carols, Australia Day, that do not have incorporated committees.
Point of order, I'm not here yet to debate the issue whether what ones we have. I've moved a resolution.
Councillor Duffy, can you sit down? I've asked for clarification off the Director. Thank you.
Right, Mayor, I was just clarifying that I was understanding the proposal. That is, if that is the understanding, it's inconsistent with any others. That is my comment.
Councillor Duffy, would you like to ask your question now?
Sorry?
I'd like to ask your question now of the Director.
I've got no questions of the Director. She didn't make mention of any other people who received $10,000.
Can I ask the Director to provide perhaps some examples of other organisations who receive funding around the same amount which is being requested, and I've asked that the amount be reduced from 50 to 30, and asked what the process is and criteria.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. The difference in what we're talking about here, those events which receive $10,000 are not run by council, they are run by other organisations. So those organisations apply for funding, of which we as the council would then recommend to you, the councillors, who would approve that funding. In this instance, we're talking about council-run events such as New Year's Eve, Australia Day, carols. Those events are organised and created by the council staff, and therefore their funding is not a sponsorship but actually completing those events. For example, the New Year's Eve, it had a spending which had $18,000 of sponsorship and around $57,000 of council contribution.
And that's one example. What about Australia Day and carols, things like that?
If I could just grab my laptop, sir, and I'll have those figures for you.
Thank you.
Okay, Mr Mayor, as I said, New Year's Eve, 75,000 as of our current budget, 18,000 received in sponsorship with net to council 57, carols 35,500, 2,500 received in sponsorship, net cost to council 32,000, Australia Day 28,000 normally. This year we were lucky enough to receive a grant of $10,000, which reduced that down to approximately $18,000.
Thank you. Councillor Power.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. So to get some clarity on this, we're talking about grants. So the grants in relation to the motion has nothing to do with an incorporated body because Orange City Council is actually doing it. And so that money isn't being transferred to an incorporated body as what the motion is mentioning, an amendment of that motion. So is that right?
Through you, Mr Mayor. Yes, we have received the grants, as in Orange City Council have received 2 funds, one from Newmont Mining and one from Destination New South Wales. So Orange City Council have received that. I'm not sure on the legalities. I would have to take it on notice if you were to ask me to find out about how on earth we would pass that on to another entity if that was something that was passed here tonight.
Yeah, I would probably find that difficult because the funding agreement, with my understanding of grants, are line itemed according to the successful applicant. Orange City Council is the successful applicant. So the motion is saying that the body should be incorporated. The body is not getting the funds.
Through you, Mr Mayor, that is true.
Thank you.
Any other questions, Director? Councillor McDonald.
Look, I'll speak against the amendment. I think it's a completely scuttle the Rainbow Festival. I don't see how this would work at all. I'm actually also...
Could I have a point of order, Mr Chairman? I wasn't asked to speak.
Yes, what is your point of order, Councillor?
I wasn't asked to speak for my amendment. I move the amendment. You asked me to sit down and listen to the comments from the Director, which I did, and we've heard them now. Now you're taking speeches.
Yeah, you can speak after the councillor. You can speak again, Councillor Duffy, if you like. Councillor.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. As I said, it's an attempt to scuttle the Rainbow Festival in a different way that was attempted earlier this year. It does not make sense. So I'm also going to foreshadow an amendment, which I'll talk to after we've dealt with this one, against the amendment.
Back to you, Councillor Duffy.
Yeah, thank you, Mr Mayor. Councillors, my recommendation, it can happen and council can get approval to pass the money on. Or in the process of the budget, we haven't seen any applications or perspectives to see what was there and how we acquired the money. But I'm getting back to the actual resolution. And the resolution allows the 3 major things, which are diversity, inclusion, diversity because the event's going ahead, inclusion because it is going ahead as well.
Are you speaking to the resolution or the amendment?
I'm speaking to the amendment.
You just said the resolution.
It's an amendment. Let me finish and you might understand.
Thank you.
Okay, it allows equity as well. The equity as well as everyone else across the area gets around about $10,000 of organisations. I'm not saying council should be involved in this. We're not stopping the Rainbow Festival in any shape or form, as was the previous year and earlier on this year, was not to stop it, it was to take council out of it. But you look at Nublar, $10,000, Orange Show, $10,000, Wine Festival, ANFD, Chamber Music Festival, $10,000. All these have their own body and own insurance. I don't have any problem if council members want to become a member of that, and I don't have a problem with council staff providing expertise or to any of the organisations whatsoever. But you look at others, as I said, you look at others that were there. But you also have others that have received money. Housing Plus, there's $8,000 for the White Tie Ball. They got their own incorporated body. You have the 8-day games only get $1,000. You have Wine Food Week, $5,000. There's a heaps of things there that we're talking about. And you seem to be scared of incorporation. I can tell you, I've been involved in a lot of corporations, and the first one that I ever got involved was the incorporation of the Orange District Cricketers Association, which happened back in about the 70s or the 80s. That was under the auspices.
It's not relevant.
That was under the
I'm happy to let the councillor continue. Keep going, councillor.
that was under the auspices of the ODCO, but under the guidance of Keith Adams, who was very knowledgeable there, and we had a committee set it up. I've also been involved in a lot of others as well, but I'd look at the budget in the process of what the format is that we have there, and it says here, budget is unknown, and the vast majority of residents, although not completely happy with council about the capacity and its long-term, agree with equity. We need the equity. That's what everyone wants, is the equity, the equal distribution of money. Not $50,000, not $30,000, $10,000.
Clarify something then. You raise a good point, and I'm a bit confused about what you're actually asking for, because I thought
it's quite simple. The resolution. I'll read the resolution.
Yeah,
again.
no, that's okay. I just want clarification from the director, because you're talking. From my understanding, you're talking about events which aren't councillor run, which is completely different to what the director is the.
I'm talking about the resolutions that you have moved, and it talks about the budget as well. I'm talking about the budget as regards to this recommendation here.
It's a council-run event. Can I just seek clarification from the director, please? If my understanding is different to Councillor Duffy.
Yes, Mr Mayor, your understanding is correct that this is a council-run event, and therefore it is a different category of funding to the events that Councillor Duffy is speaking about, which have a top value of $10,000 in the policy. I would also note that he's referenced a couple of events which are run through Orange 360 as part of their four contracted events, which we pay for as part of our contract with Orange 360, which also includes marketing for the region. The overall contract for that is over $400,000, and that includes funding into things that Wine Week, Food Week, those sorts of events, in addition to the smaller grants that they apply for $5,000 or $10,000.
Thank you, Councillor Duffy.
Mr Mayor, I'm not here to just debate with staff or whatever the case be. We as a council have the authority to move a recommendation which I have moved and support or disagree with.
Yes.
I don't have any problem with that at all. So any influence from staff, as far as I'm concerned, is not acceptable the way it's been happening.
It's Councillor Duffy, I don't think it's interference.
But
I was asking for a point of clarification. Thank you.
I want to go down to the pathway of what we've got proposed. We look at the next steps. Where's the launch going to be? Does it include drag queens? Does it include story time? Does it include what's the audio visuals what's going to happen there? And what the report, it said in a couple of days' time we're going to have a report about the indication of sponsorship. We heard sponsorship earlier on saying that one of the organisations made $30,000 in one night.
Thank you. You indicated that you didn't want the staff director to have an influence, but I feel the need to ask her if she can comment on your questions with regards to what is being planned, to give you a better understanding, Councillor.
Well, I've only gone what's been presented to us.
You've asked a question.
I've asked questions, but as I said, they can make a comment when I finish, as far as I'm concerned.
Okay, thank you.
I don't want to be interrupted again, Mr Mayor.
You will be shortly, Councillor, because your 4 minutes are up.
If you want to laugh, Councillor, you're quite welcome to laugh as much as you like.
Can I have an extension for Councillor Duffy to continue, please? Yes? Yep, Councillor Judge, thank you. Continue, Councillor Duffy.
Right.
Thank you.
Okay. We're going to set up ticketing, we're going to set up social pages. It's all going to cost money. As I said before, I don't care if staff get involved in that and help the organisation do that, the corporate body. But look at here. You're looking at investment, the risk assessment. I was pleased to see the risk assessment there. There wasn't one done previously, the previous one. If it was, it must have been just to look out the window. And work health and safety audit's great. And the traffic kitty, some sign off. And then the very last one. It says March 25, 3 days after, or a couple of days after. We're going to finalise staff arrangements to look after it. What does that tell me? It tells me there's some errors in the actual report that come to us. So what is it more? I want a hell of a lot more information, and I'm not prepared to support what we've got going, because I think it should be a separate body and run by that. And sure, council can assist it. But where is the cost in the budget as regards to staff time. Staff time inclusive of what we started with back ages ago. In October, I would imagine, from what I can gather. So that was quite simple. If you want to talk about hate, now people talk about hate. People talk about hate. People talk about hate. I'm going to finish in a minute. I'm going to finish in a minute. I'm going to finish in a minute.
Mr. Mayor, he's not talking about the motion that he's put on the table. The motion is actually incorporated a body. He's not talking about the motion.
I agree. So Duffy, time's up.
Yeah, and we're talking about the ideology as well. And I'm going to talk about, you want to talk about hate. You want to talk about hate. How many goes do you want? Let me finish and have as many goes as you like.
The Mayor has said your time is up.
Thank you, Councillor Duffy. Director, can we ask you to comment with regards to the issues which Councillor Duffy has raised with regards to
the agenda?
The agenda, please. Yes, thank you, to give us a better understanding. You can sit down, Councillor Duffy, if you like.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. I refer to page 402 of the agenda, where there are two events that would be organised by Council. One on the day of Saturday the 22nd of March, a Pride March to South Court for a gathering, and the second on the evening of Saturday 22nd of March being the McNamara Lane Street Party. We acknowledge that last time there was quite a number of events which Council was organising and funding. This year, as part of the transition into hopefully a community-led event, we would have less, and therefore less budget is required, and that's why there is only two events. So the other events which Councillor Duffy was alluding to are not planned by Council, but may be run by members of the community.
Thank you.
Two quick points and I'll sit down.
You can sit down now because you'll get a chance to sum up at the end if you like.
I'll speak against the motion because I just spoke for my motion. I'll speak against the other motion when the time comes.
That's fine. We're still speaking about the amendment, debating the amendment. Councillor Mallard, thank you.
Do you want to? Okay. Thanks, Mr Mayor. Yeah, I'll just speak briefly against the amendment. It's nonsensical. There is no organisation. This is a council-led event. I think there was confusion 6 months ago when we were approving the budget allocation, and I thought we clarified it at the time, but the emails I got today from people and the comments from Councillor Duffy, I still think just don't get what is being proposed and have misunderstood certain other things, like the fact that there's an organisation called the Colour City Rainbow Hub that is basically one person who is doing some good work in the community, but came and spoke 6 months ago and had nothing to do with organising the Rainbow Festival, and people started talking as if they thought that person was organising the Rainbow Festival. They're not. This is a council-led event. This should be a council-led event. This should be a council-led event because this is about the well-being of the community. This isn't about a sporting club or a motor car club. This isn't about...
There, please, Councillor. Gallery, you're there to observe, not to make comments, please. If anybody continues, you may be asked to leave. So please respect the speaker, whether you agree or not. Continue, please, Councillor.
This isn't like a sporting club or like some other organisation. This is about leadership within the community. This is about what we heard from speakers in the public forum in support of this event, about the impact that harassment, threats, discrimination, stigma have on the LGBTQIA+ community and the work that we can do to overcome that. And that is why we are leading this. I hope that it gets to a point where it is thriving, sustainable and as community driven as possible. And I said this in an earlier debate. One of the performers who came down from Queensland for the event at the brunch that I was at with Julian and Colette and a bunch of other people having an absolutely wonderful time, that this was a person who had grown up as a queer person in Rockhampton and who knew how important it was to have a council, and they spoke about it, to have a council taking the lead in their community in saying that we're going to stand up against bigotry. We're going to stand up against the people who yell, who threaten and harass. We're going to show the LGBTQIA+ community, in particular young people, that they are seen, they are loved, they are welcome, they are accepted. And That is why it needs to be council-led, and there is no alternative organisation at this point to drive it. If something develops, that's one possibility. If a community committee becomes the right structure, that's another possibility. But for this year, it needs to be a council event or it falls over. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor. Councillor Power.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. If the amendment gets up, the staff, I don't see how they're going to go ahead with it, because, as what the director's already mentioned, Mr. Mayor, that it's run by Orange City Council. It's not being given off to another organisation like all the other itemised events that have been funded, and we've approved those through this here. This is something totally different. So that's why I'm speaking against the motion itself. I know there's on the table of reducing the fund. That's what we can definitely vote on, but not the actual amendment that's been put up, is to get the body incorporated. We've got no rights or authority, Mr. Mayor, to actually do that. They're not even present. It's us here tonight voting on the funds that are grant funds. And the itemised already said there's 2 grant funds that have been accepted, one's been knocked back. So we've got $40,000 there plus the other side. So it's just how we're going to do it. But the amendment just doesn't make any sense to me, Mr. Mayor. Thank you.
Thank you. We're still debating the amendment. Councillor Ruddy.
Yeah, can I just ask a question?
Are
you suggesting, or Councillor Duffy, are you suggesting that any large events that are run by council should go to an incorporated body, including Australia Day, New Year's Eve, Carols, Anzac Day, pretty much any large event which is council-led that gets, it sounds like a similar amount of money? Should they all have incorporated bodies which operate those events too? Why is this different to those?
With your permission, Mr. Mayor, I'll read the resolution again.
Thank you.
And it says, Orange City Council will require the Rainbow Festival Committee to form an independent incorporated body, make an application under the Events Funding Program in line with all other applications by independent incorporated bodies. When evidence is provided, authorise the CEO to approve a maximum of $10,000 to the event. Doesn't mention any other event or anyone else, whatever the case may be.
But if we want to be equitable,
between the two of you, please direct your question through
you, Mr. Mayor. If we want to be equitable, there's an Australia Day committee that organises the Australia Day event we have. There's a NAIDOC committee that organises the NAIDOC events that we do. These are all council-led. So in order to be equitable, then your motion should include all of those, and that should be something that happens across the board rather than.
Of opinion, but that's your opinion.
Thank you. You satisfied with the response, Councillor?
No, but that'll do.
Thank you very much. Are there any further speaks with regards to debating the amendment? Councillor Greenhalgh.
Can I just have a couple of points of clarification? So just in terms of the committee...
Who are you speaking to?
To the director.
Thank you.
So just in terms of the committee, we haven't been provided any minutes of meetings and so forth for that. So I would expect that, like every other committee, that would come in time.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, this is an event committee, not a community committee in the way that you are used to referring to a community committee. So, no, I would not expect that you would have minutes come to this council. But if that's something that you wanted to see in the future, I'm sure that the committee would be more than happy to present reports to the council.
Okay. So just another question too, because I've just noticed that the event is now spanning over a longer period of time than it has previously. So that was something I wasn't aware of until we received the minutes. So probably a comment that I would make is money can't buy love. And I think it doesn't matter the amount that we're spending. We do, however, need to be mindful of the current economic climate. And the analogy I refer this to is we look at the carols, we spent $35,500 and we produced a wonderful event. So I don't know what the answer is, whether we look to scale it back or what we look to do. It doesn't mean if we don't give the whole amount that we're not supporting this community and we're not acknowledging the stigma and all those sorts of things. But one event isn't going to solve those problems. and it's money invested into other things like Headspace, like all those things as a whole community where we can bring this together. So I think we need to think about it carefully. And yeah, let's just see what unfolds.
Can I just ask the Director an opinion? In the Councillor made a comment that it's been expanded. Can you explain what's happening there?
Through you, Mr Mayor, well noticed, Councillor. That is to do with the options for the businesses to be able to spread that over a number of days. You'll note there that CSU has indicated that they would like to have an event on the Wednesday. We may or may not get businesses who wish to run events on the Thursday, Friday or the Sunday. If we weren't to have one on the Sunday, then we would be the same period of time as last year. If we were to get one on the Sunday, we would be one extra day. Correct.
Thank you for clarification. Any further discussion regarding the amendment? Is Councillor King on?
Oh, thank you, Mr Mayor. Just, again, a point of clarification. The Rainbow Festival Committee is an event committee, so it's made up of council staff. Is that right?
Through you, Mr Mayor. It's a mixture of council staff and interested members of the public, similar to the way the Domestic Violence Committee started or some of the other committees for NAIDOC, those sorts of things. So we do have formal community committees, but we also have an advisory committee. CSU, Headspace, Sincerely Queer, council members are all part of that committee.
Okay, so requiring that committee to become incorporated would not be something that you would normally do because of the council staff involvement?
I don't have a precedent of it happening in any other way. Sorry, through you, Mr Mayor.
Thank you.
Okay, all right, I'm confused. Okay, thank you.
Councillor Duffy, would you like to close the debate?
I'm not closing the debate on, Mr Chairman, because we've still got a motion going, which is your motion.
No, your amendment. Sorry.
My amendment. Well, I've got to be able to speak against your motion. Your motion, Mr Mayor.
You can.
I'm not closing the debate, though. Sorry,
Point of order. Just hold on a sec. I just want to clarify something. Okay. So if you don't want to speak, close the amendment. Understanding? You want
I'm not closing the amendment. The amendment
Point of
doesn't
order,
have a right
Mr.
to
Mayor.
close.
Okay. Sit down for a sec, please.
I have a right to speak against the motion. Which
Yeah, of course. Yeah, I understand that. That's fine. Councillor Mallard.
Just point of order, Mr Mayor. I'll just note section 10.20 of the Code of Meeting Practice is, I think, the part that has about the right to speak and rights of reply. And there's nothing that provides a right of reply on an amendment. It is the mover of the original motion has the right to reply.
Thank you.
At the conclusion of debate on the motion.
What we'll do now is we'll put the amendment, go for the foreshadowed after that. So I'll put the...
Point of order, Mr Chairman.
What is it, Councillor?
Point of order is that there is a motion, which is your motion, was seconded by someone. Now, that is a discussion between what the council is discussing between your motion and my amendment.
Okay, I'll just...
And that debate has not happened because you've only spoke about the amendment. No one's had a chance to have a crack at the motion.
I'll just ask the
if
CEO
I lose
to
the
clarify.
amendment, the other foreshadowed amendment comes in, and that's the way it operates.
I'll just ask the
Point of
CEO
order.
for a clarification, please.
Councillors, we have a motion, an original motion put by Councillor Miletto to reduce the amount to $30,000. Then we had an amendment by Councillor Duffy for incorporation and a $10,000 amount. The amendment has been debated. Councillor McDonald has foreshadowed she has a motion. We don't know what it is yet. Now, there has been debate around the amendment correctly. The Mayor is about to put the amendment. If the amendment is lost, we will then hear what the foreshadowed amendment is, and that will be debated and won or lost. When those amendments, any more amendments are dealt with, we'll then come to the original motion and debate it. Thank you very much.
Okay.
So the amendment now needs to be put.
Put the amendment. All in favour of the amendment? 2. Against? The amendment is lost. We now go to the foreshadowed.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. I'd like to, my amendment...
and I'll need a seconder after you.
She explains it.
Yes,
Ollie.
apologies.
Thank you. I'd like to move the original motion as printed in the papers that Council support the proposed project plan for Rainbow Festival 2025, including the expenditure of $50,000, and that any ticket sales and sponsorships received are applied to lower the impact to the overall budget.
I'll second that.
Thank you.
I understand the comments around the cost of living crisis, despite what some might believe. We up here in our ivory towers raking in the bucks. I am in favour of the Rainbow Festival. I was in favour of it earlier this year, and I will always be in favour of it because my ideology is based on kindness, respect and inclusion. That is the only kind of ideology I want to be pushing. Be claiming that the events, well, there was a sign earlier, basically grooming children is...
Can we just stick to the issue and not...
I am.
Yeah, okay, thank you.
Because I'm speaking to the abuse and the discrimination that members of our LGBTQIA plus community have to face and my reasons for supporting the Rainbow Festival. So that is what I'm coming from. The hatred and the vitriol that has been given a platform again here is reprehensible. Everyone is entitled to their own belief and opinion. Absolutely you are. You're not entitled to spread hatred, misinformation, and make our community unsafe. No one is entitled to that, no matter what you believe in. Orange, as I know it, having grown up here, is overwhelmingly a supportive, welcoming community.
Order, Mr. Chairman.
Yeah, could you just address the councillors, not the gallery, please, councillor? Thank you.
You're done. I would like to thank the supporters for turning up here, and I would also like to thank those who had the courage to speak as well. The reason we need, as Councillor Mallard mentioned, to be providing community leadership on this is because, yes, LGBTQIA plus people are a minority. But that doesn't mean that we let them go it alone. So here are some stats again. More than 80% of LGBTQIA plus people experience high or very high levels of psychological distress. 42% hide their sexuality or gender identity at social and community events. If we're talking about mental health, especially our youth, which a lot of people like to say protect the children, LGBTQIA plus youth are 4 times more likely to experience depression, 2.5 times more likely to experience an anxiety condition. Apologies, a trigger warning here. 1 in 6 have attempted suicide, 1 in 3 have harmed themselves. This is our youth. Research is repeatedly showing all of this is caused by homophobia and transphobia, persistent bullying and harassment, including cyberbullying, social and or geographical isolation, mental, emotional and or physical abuse, lack of parental or family acceptance, sexual abuse and lack of intervention when homophobia and transphobia takes place. 60% of LGBTQIA plus youth aged 14 to 21 feel unsafe at secondary school. 80% of homophobic bullying occurs in schools. LGBTQIA plus youth who self-harmed, again, trigger warning, my apologies, cut their arms, their legs, their breasts and genitals, they've burnt themselves, they've starved themselves to prevent menstruation, they've over-exercised in an effort to delay puberty through weight loss and or banged their head or body against hard surfaces. Evidence is there, the research shows this. The National Mental Health and Suicide Prevention Agreement requires governments to support priority populations at higher risk of mental ill health and suicide. LGBTQIA plus community is a priority population. And I would challenge any councillor or community member to publicly state that they do not support lowering the risk of mental ill health and suicide for any demographic. Maybe, some people only support action for people that they deem worthy. Rainbow Festival is a positive celebration of LGBTQIA plus people. This year's event was amazing despite the weather. It was a fantastic, fantastic positive event. And yes, there were adults only events, and then there were family friendly events. Did we get it perfect the first time? Probably not. No one ever does. You can learn from that. Now, one final thing I want to say to the people who oppose Rainbow Festival and who malign members of our LGBTQIA+ community. I know I'm not only speaking for myself here as a councillor, but vile emails, allegations, comments on social media and on the public record, that is not our community. We deserve better, and it's our job here as councillors to make sure that we have a safe and inclusive community. And by celebrating and providing a safe space with this Rainbow Festival, and yes, the days, there's a few more days this time.
So, can I have somebody extend it? Yes, thanks, Councillor Millard. Continue, please.
I'll be brief. It's a couple more days. Council is only running events on one day. It's the opportunity for extra events, which I think is fantastic because the support was there earlier this year. The support is still there. So I absolutely think we should be putting the whole 50,000 to it. Sales, sponsorships, take that down, which means that we need to make sure we have buy-in to make sure that this is a really successful event. So yeah, that's my amendment.
Thank you. Councillor Millard.
Thanks, Mr Mayor. Speaking in support of the amendment to put the amount at $50,000 as was recommended in the plan brought by staff. And I want to begin by acknowledging and thanking the staff for their work on this year's Rainbow Festival and on the plan for next year's Rainbow Festival and on all of the work that the council staff in collaboration with organisations like Headspace, CSU, Sincerely Queer have done to plan this out. I think we've got a proposal. The staff have worked it through. We made the budget allocation of $50,000 in the previous term of council, subject to good governance around it and a plan for how it was going to work. I think we should stick with the plan that's been presented to us. To comment on a couple of the concerns raised by Councillor Greenhalgh, and I do appreciate where she's coming from, but the budget's been cut back by $60,000 from this year's event. It's a longer duration total, but the key thing is there are 2 council-led events this time around rather than running 2 other side events, and it's trying to create the opportunities for local businesses to buy into it. And I know some did last time. We had partners, but we also had places like the Parkview Hotel that I know decked out their balcony in rainbow colours. They weren't part of the event. They happened to be opposite where the street party was going to be. I hope we see a lot more of that in the coming year, and I hope we see it become something that the whole community and the business community buys into. I think we should go with the plan as it is. I appreciate that it might be possible to rework the plan with a reduced budget, but we do have the indication as well that dependent on ticketing and sponsorship, we may not spend the full $50,000 out of that budget anyway. So I feel like, we're 3 months out. We've had a plan presented to us. I think it's a good plan that's workable, that actually does scale back a bit, but still maintains what was so wonderful about those events. And I agree with Councillor McDonald. I went to the Pride March, I went to the night party, I went to the brunch on Sunday as well. I unfortunately missed the Friday night event due to illness, but they were absolutely wonderful. They each served a different purpose, but they each tied together, and I can really appreciate the way they've set up a sequence of events in this plan so that hopefully, we get some more buzz happening through the week if we get businesses to buy into events, and then we get the big things happening on the Saturday. Thanks.
Thank you, Councillor. Any other speakers? There being none, I'll put the amendment. All in favour? All councillors. Okay. Those against? The foreshadowed is lost. We go back to the original motion. Any discussion? Councillor Mallard.
Thanks, Mr. Mayor. I'm aware it's my third time speaking, so I'll keep it fairly brief, but I do want to say now I will be happy to support the motion. We moved the amendment. I would have preferred if we stuck with the original budget, but I am definitely supportive of seeing the event go ahead and running with the reduced allocation of council funds. I've already talked about how important I think this event is. I think the impact that it has in our community is massive. I think the hate that we've seen, that we've received in our inboxes, that I know people, unfortunately, as we've heard tonight, have experienced in our community. All of those things are the reason why this festival needs to happen. I just found it awful the way people are talking about it. Like I said, it's not a sporting club or something, but it's like people talking like we're privileging a group. We're lifting up and supporting disadvantaged people who are vulnerable because of who they are, who are confused as young people because of who they are, not because someone's brainwashing them or trying to make them confused through these events. It's just turning logic on its head. I know from going to the events last year, I met multiple wonderful parents of trans and gender diverse kids who are going through dealing with things that I had never had to encounter while my kids were in their childhood. And they found this event so affirming, and that's a word that we shouldn't be afraid of using. If affirmation is a bad thing, then I don't know what we're doing in trying to care for our community. I absolutely 100% support this event. I want it to be a success in this coming year, and I hope that with the budget that we're allocating, it will still go off. And I know we've got wonderful people here and loads more out in the community. We're going to get the word out and we're going to make it the biggest, best celebration we possibly can. I'm really looking forward to being part of it again, and I'm very happy to support the motion and then continue to work to make this a thriving, sustainable annual event that will be so critical to improving wellbeing in our community. Thanks.
Thank you, Councillor, and I'll just make a comment myself. And thank you, councillors, for listening to the fact that wanted to reduce that amount from $50,000 to $30,000. There are a lot of people who spoke who are concerned about how much money council was allocating to the festival. I think it's only financially responsible that we look at those type of things, and look at areas where we can cut cost and things like that. From what I've seen of what's been produced so far, I'm very confident that the staff and those people who are involved in the committee will be looking at all opportunities to source further sponsorship, sell tickets to their event, and should they be successful, we would hope that that $30,000 is reduced even further. And I'm looking forward to seeing how the group works. And I'm supporting, as I said, because I moved the motion, I'll be supporting the reduction from 50,000 to 30,000. So thank you very much, and thank you to everybody who has spoken on either side. There's obviously some different points of view, and that's fine. That's what democracy is all about, and it's been done respectfully. And thank you to the council staff for your input into the debate also. So are there any other speakers before we put the vote? Councillor Greenouch.
Can I just have a question through you, Mr. Mayor, to the Director, if I may?
Just allow her to get up, if that's all right.
Thank you. So first of all, congratulations on the 2 successful grant applications. Just a question around the Pride Foundation Regional Grants Program for the $10,000. Did we get any feedback on why that was actually unsuccessful? Do we not meet the criteria or?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, no specific details were provided, just that they had numerous applications.
Thank you.
Thank you, Director. Any further speakers? Councillor Kinghorn.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. A few things. One, this is the 3rd time this year that we've been talking about this, and it's obviously traumatic for some people to come and speak. And I'm just hoping that we're not going to do this 3 times every year, because it's quite stressful for all of the councillors as well. So just so that you know. When we had this resolution initially to put the $50,000 aside, I did vote against that because I thought that, well, I think the Rainbow Festival's fine, and if people have some sort of ideological dislike of the LGBTQIA plus community, then don't go to the festival. It's pretty straightforward from that perspective. But I also thought that a lot of the opposition came from the fact that we were spending ratepayers' money on the festival. And if you can remove that argument, then I think a lot of the opposition goes. So if it can be done without ratepayers' money, then it should be. And I think that, as everybody has said, it was a lot of people there. People thought it was great. They will pay. People will pay and people will sponsor it. And I think that's the answer. That's really the only way you can get people sort of on the same page. So all those people who say, I don't want it to go ahead because I don't want to use ratepayers' money, which is, I think, a valid argument, it doesn't necessarily mean that they're homophobic, hateful, bigoted, all the other things that come out. It just means they don't want to spend the money. And that's their choice. I think that's okay. So I'm actually not going to be supporting it. I didn't support it then. I'm not supporting it now. It doesn't mean I don't want it to go ahead. I hope it goes really well. I understand that it's people that try and turn it into something about, gender transformation and all sorts of things that it isn't. It's just the rainbow community celebrating themselves, and that's great. If you want to celebrate yourself, that's fine, but I don't necessarily want to pay for it. So thank you.
Thank you, Councillor. Councillor Ruddy.
So I spent a while putting a speech together, so I just really want to say what I want to say. So firstly, I'm speaking in support of the proposal that we're here for tonight. I do want to acknowledge the concerns raised regarding the use of council funds. So the proposed 50, which is now 30, the discussion initially was that it would be a safety net, which would be substantially offset through sponsorships, community contributions, ticket sales. In my ideal world, it will be completely offset and we won't use any council money. And then, as Councillor Kinghorn's just said, no one should have anything to complain about because it hasn't cost council any money. I had a look at the sponsorship prospectus and there's a potential to secure at least $30,000 in funding there. So I think there's a really good opportunity to bring the now 30 that we're debating down significantly. As I said, I'd love to see it all disappear. I want to discuss the economic benefits of the festival. It's undeniable how positive that would be. Events like this generate significant return for local businesses, especially in the tourism and hospitality sectors, which we know are massive in Orange. We've already witnessed the impact firsthand with other successful events of all types, where business owners have reported increased sales and stronger engagement with visitors and locals. But beyond the immediate economic returns, the Rainbow Festival enhances Orange's reputation as a progressive, inclusive and welcoming city. Hosting events that celebrate diversity, attract new visitors, encourage repeat tourism and position Orange as a vibrant regional hub for cultural celebrations. Inclusivity is not just a social value, it's also an economic driver that contributes to the long-term growth of our city. Finally, the Rainbow Festival is about community. It fosters unity, respect and acceptance, values that lie at the heart of what we want Orange to represent. Creating spaces where everyone feels welcomed and celebrated is a reflection of who we are and the kind of community that we aspire to be. In closing, I encourage my fellow councillors to support this event. Rainbow Festival is a celebration of diversity, an opportunity for economic growth, and a step forward in strengthening Orange's standing as an inclusive, forward-thinking city. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor. Councillor Peterson.
Thank you, and I thank everyone who spoke tonight. There's a lot of, I guess, emotion and passion that people have, and I guess I'd like to acknowledge that. My observation is that the oft-quoted desire for this to be a community-run event, to have a budget of 100,000 is a lot for a community organisation to raise by themselves. So whether it happened tonight through the modification by the Mayor, whether it was sometime down the line, smaller budget is probably going to be more achievable for a community event. And that would sort of negate some of the, problems about council money, which has obviously been raised. The only other point I'd like to make is that, yes, I think there's unfortunately a conflation of the issues, whether I don't want it to be that if you're not prepared to spend this money, that somehow means that you're anti a particular group of people. I reject that completely. And I think they're two separate issues that are unfortunately being conflated tonight.
Thank you, Councillor. Any other speakers? Being none, I'll put the motion. All for? Those against? Or against? What are you doing, Councillor?
Oh, yeah.
You're against, are you?
He's voting against it again.
Okay, 6-5. Motion stands. Thank you, councillors. And thank you to the gallery for being so patient. If you'd like to stay for the rest of the meeting, you're quite welcome to, but somehow I don't think you will. Thank you very much. If we can ask Councillor Whitten to come back in.
The pub. He had a movie on his phone.
Join you.
Yeah.
Bye, Terry.
Okay, Council, so if we go to item number 2.1, Mayoral Minutes, Country Mayors Association Annual General Meeting on the 15th of November 2024. I move that the Mayoral Minute, no, somebody second it, please. Thank you, Councillor Whitten. Any discussion? This item? None. I'll put the motion. Hands for. Unanimous. Thank you. Go to item number 3.1, minutes of the ordinary meeting of the Orange City Council held on the 3rd of December 2024. There's a recommendation on page 17, moved by Councillor Whitten and seconded by Councillor Kinghorn. Any discussion, councillors? Councillor Mallard.
Thanks, Mr. Mayor. Yeah, just wanted to say a few brief words, particularly relating to item 7 and the resolutions and the amendments I moved relating to proposed sale of 73A Hill Street. Just acknowledging these items tend to be discussed in closed meeting for understandable reasons. There's commercial sensitivities. The amendments that I've moved are there now, and I just wanted to put on record that I did move those amendments because I maintain that public land is the key asset that we've got to try and make a difference on the housing crisis. I think decisions to sell off into the private market and for council to effectively profit off the housing crisis aren't responsible. And I think we could have looked at alternative ways to manage. Our debt servicing ratio, as we've seen in recent financial reports that have come to council meetings, have put us in good stead, that we could have funded things alternatively. Unfortunately, I didn't win the day on those, so I'll acknowledge that, and that the council decision is now to proceed with the sale. Thanks.
Thank you. I guess the was after the accuracy where the minutes were accurate. Thank you. Councillor Ruddy.
A matter arising for the previous minutes that I forgot to do last week and I want to do it now. It's around 4.2, the abortion services that we discussed. Through you, Mr Mayor, to the CEO, I would like to ask if Council can coordinate the compilation of a comprehensive list of services available in Orange that provide abortion services and the associated care. Currently, there's no centralised local resource that identifies which doctors and pharmacies can offer these services locally. It's my opinion that creating such a resource would alleviate some of the need for women to access the Orange Health Service and would ensure community members have clear, accessible information to make informed decisions about their healthcare. I know that not everybody would want to participate or do that.
Mr. CEO, I'll ask for a comment.
Through Mr. Chair, I'd be really worried that we had our competence to do that. So can I take that on notice and come back to you?
Absolutely, yes.
Thank you.
Councillor Kinghorn.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. Just wondering if I can respond partially to Councillor Ruddy's.
Yes, you can.
Yeah. So any GP can prescribe the medical termination medication and any pharmacy can dispense it.
More about who's willing to.
That's where it will probably get tricky because the GPs are probably not willing to say whether they are or not because they don't want people picketing in their driveways.
Yes,
yeah.
Some will.
Okay.
I'll do my best. I'll take it on.
Okay. Any further discussion regarding the previous minutes? There being none, I'll ask for a show of hands for. Unanimous. Go now to notice of motions and item 4.1. That's the findings of the Pound Inquiry New South Wales Legislative Council Portfolio Committee number 8. There's a recommendation on page 27. Do I have a mover? Councillor Mallard. And a seconder? Yep, Councillor Ruddy. Thank you. Any discussion? Councillor Mallard.
Thanks, Mr Mayor. I'll just speak briefly on this one. I hope it's a fairly straightforward one. I did link to the inquiry report, which Ms Hess spoke earlier and admirably and passionately covered what we're dealing with. And I want to acknowledge, again, council staff who work in this space. Having been chair of the Companion Animals Community Committee last term, I've got to see and know about the operation of the pound and the rangers and the work that our staff do and the many volunteers and others who work in the rehoming organisations as well. As Ms Hass explained, this is crisis and it's not just us, but it is definitely our local government area and our region. The fact that we actually have a good pound that we attempt to not close off whenever we can avoid it means we actually shoulder more of the burden from the region. But what we need is to get a message to the state government as they consider this report from the inquiry that we fully support and we need urgent action from the government to provide the resources that we need. This, while it's a different area, it's related to animals. It's so much like other areas in the sense that we have a crisis spiralling out of control and we're going to have increased demands on crisis services. And the only way that that's going to be solved is to get better at trying to prevent the problems from happening in the first place. We're talking about community education. We're talking about programs to do desexing, microchipping, promoting registration, all of those things that we attempt to do. The Companion Animals Community Committee works with council staff. We run a desexing program for concession card holders every year, but it's barely scratching the surface. And then there are all of the people who don't want to engage with that, don't want to engage with responsible pet ownership, getting through to all of those people. There's a mass of work to do here. We know Ms Hass talked about the pounds being at capacity and stretched. I also know I've heard in the past week from people who are involved with supporting the RSPCA. They have a waiting list. I understand it's around 100 animals long now of people wanting to surrender their animals, and the shelter doesn't have the capacity to take them in. People are queuing up to give up their animals at the moment. It's shocking if you haven't been engaged with it, as Ms. Hass explained. It's appalling. We need to recognise that the people who work in these areas, as I said, the council staff, the people at the rehoming organisations, they get into this because they love animals and they bear the trauma and the grief of just watching the shit people do to their animals and the way people treat their animals, and we need to overcome this. So, yeah, I hope this is one that can get support and that we can urge the government to support the recommendations of this inquiry. I will note before I wrap up the debate as well that there is another inquiry now going into another of the key issues that the companion animals community deal with, and that's the management of cats. So that'll be another one that we'll be looking at lobbying the state government on further down the road, perhaps. Thanks.
Thanks, Councillor. Councillor Ruddy?
I'm okay. That covered most of
Okay,
it.
any further speakers? Councillor Kinghorn.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Just a question. We were discussing the need for funding, and I know that there's the program for desexing in Orange, and I think there's a donation as well that covers microchipping as well. I'm just wondering what the shortfall is. Is there not how much short are we in terms of funding those programs?
Are you directing your question at?
You.
Through you, Mr. Chair, we'll have to take that on notice because our resident expert, Mr. Hodges, is on leave.
Okay, thank you.
Sorry,
Thanks,
Mr.
Councillor.
Johnston.
Any other speakers? Councillor, did you want to sum up your debate?
I'll mention I certainly don't have an answer, and I mean I think that'd be hard to estimate. But the first recommendation of the inquiry is for the government to provide grants to councils and rescue and rehoming organisations to carry out large-scale targeted desexing programs, which, yeah, I mean, it goes to the criticality of it. And yeah, we only do it for concession card holders at the moment. So you're talking, there's a whole lot of people there who can't get financial assistance to do it at this point. Thanks.
Thank you, Councillor. I'll now put the motion. Show of hands for. Unanimous. Thank you very much. Item 4.2, notice motion affordable housing. Page 29, there's a recommendation. Councillor Kinghorn, would you like to move your motion?
I would like that very much. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Seconded by Councillor Whitten.
So I'll just speak to it. It's pretty straightforward. There have been some news articles suggesting that there are some sites in Orange that the state government is allocating for as possible sites for affordable housing, and I would just like to know what they are. As Mr. Donato said earlier, we've all got to work together on this one, and we can only really do that if we have as much information as we can get. And if we do know what we're doing, then we can have programs and things in place to be eligible for funding more quickly than we might otherwise be. So it's just to try and sort that out.
I'm also aware that the Country Mayors Association are also writing to the government to ascertain how many buildings they have around town which aren't being utilised, and trying to get some idea about other houses which are owned by investors, things like that. So there's certainly some work going on behind the scenes, and hopefully we'll get some further information. Councillor Peterson, next.
I support the motion and just wanted to add, as I was reading that and then the rest of the paper, Orange Economic Development Strategy 5.8 of this meeting on page 362 that discuss the weakness and threats. All the headlines, all housing availability and affordability, and then they've got a unemployment rate of 1.5%. So obviously the lack of housing supply and affordability is an economic as well as an ethical issue. Appreciate there's different ways or different ideas of how best to deal with that. But definitely an economic issue as well as an ethical one.
Councillor Duffy.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'm supporting the recommendation. I would have liked to see another couple of words in there, say what other land has the government own as well that they haven't got tagged. Mentioned as regard to that, you've got the old nurses' quarter up there, which they still own as well. So, I don't know, but I'd like to hear Maybe the mover might.
What would the wording be, Councillor Duffy? Would you like the mover to accept?
And a report obtained of all land
Talking to your microphone, if that's okay. Thank you.
that the report obtained all land owned by the state government in the area, the LGA.
Councillor King, are you happy to accept that?
Which could be used for housing, whether it be affordable or whatever type of housing.
I think that I thought that was covered by the or otherwise currently redundant.
I think it's covered. Your word for me.
I'll stop it. I think it's already in the motion.
Thank you. Councillor Whitten.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I thought it would be a word you'd know, redundant ones. Great motion, Councillor Kinghorn. It's one that we've raised many times in over the years in council, because all of us know that there are social lands and social housing that are vacant and have been for many, many, many years for whatever reason. In that department, they've decided to leave those homes vacant. They don't repair them, or they demolish it and leave the land vacant. And certainly, somebody mentioned tonight Bloomfield, the Bloomfield precinct. There are some beautiful buildings out there. Sure, they need some work, but they are sitting dormant and empty. And this week, or last week, I was in Dubbo, where they've taken the old orange. Jeez, I'm in trouble now. The old Dubbo High School and converted it into a cultural centre. And it is beautiful. It is an old, big building, whole school, which has been converted into a cultural centre. I know we're talking about housing and homes here. So there is a lot of land. There are a number of dwellings. And there are lots of buildings owned by state and federal government departments, which could be utilised for the current crisis. And it is a crisis, and it's not until we have a crisis that we start looking at these things and try to best. And I know there are some issues with those buildings to do with asbestos, but those issues can be overcome. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you. Any other speakers? Would you like to sum up, Councillor?
Oh, thank you. It'll be a pretty short summary, but I did just want to respond to what Councillor Whitten had just said. And in 2022, I did bring a motion to council to attempt to find out about the social housing that were empty in Orange, and we never did get a result. Mr. Hodges tried lots of ways to get it. He just couldn't get the information. But I was talking with Director Sharp this afternoon, and I had heard that Lithgow was able to get that information, so we're going to liaise with them and find out how they did it. There was also a motion in June last year about council-owned land that might be suitable for emergency type housing as well, and she's chasing that up as well because we haven't got a response. So, thank you.
Thank you. There being no further speakers, I'll put the motion. All in favour? Unanimous. Thank you. Now go to item number 5, general reports, confirmation of the minutes from the policy committee meetings held on 3rd December 2024. There's a recommendation on page 31. Moved by Councillor Whitten, seconded by Councillor Duffy. Any discussion, councillors? Councillor Greenhouse.
Probably more of a comment rather than anything, but it was great to see the possible change in location to Orange for 2025 as a joint Orana Central West RDA and Merck event. So well done, Councillor Duffy, and we look forward to hopefully having that event here.
Thank you. Any further discussion? Being none, I'll put the motion. Show of hands full. Unanimous. 5.2, Merck Annual General Meeting and Ordinary Meeting Minutes from the 14th of November 2024. The recommendation on page 37, moved by Councillor Duffy.
Yeah, I'm happy to move this here.
39.
I just want to make...
What did I say?
Yeah.
339.
I just want to make a quick comment on it. These are
we have a seconder?
Yeah.
These
are just draft minutes, so I don't think we should take too much notice of them until we're endorsed by the executive.
Thank you, Councillor. Any discussion? There being none, I'll put the motion. All in favour? Unanimous. Item 5.3, Redmond Place Master Plan Post-Exhibition Report. On page 49, there is a recommendation. Can I have somebody moved by Councillor Mallard, seconded by Councillor Bauer? Any discussion? Councillor Peterson.
Yeah, just a question, Mr. Mayor. So the Redmond Place development has a minimum of 20%, comprising affordable housing, with the opportunity to increase to 30% if market conditions allow. I just wondered if someone could explain to ignorant people like myself what market conditions would need to allow the 30% to happen.
Through Mr. Chair, I can probably answer that simply. Like any other project, the project has a break even, shall we say. Let's just say if the house prices are going through the roof, it's a wonderful project. Everyone's making lots of money. The project itself could afford to go more affordable. If it's a tight market, it'll go the other way. It's the project fundamentals that'll determine that. But we're getting a minimum 20%.
Does that satisfy you, Councillor?
I'm just curious what would motivate a developer to have less money if the house prices were going really well, but maybe we can chat.
I think what it is Landcom is a state-run body. They can't lose money. They play long with their money. Right? A developer plays short with their money. Landcom has the luxury of playing long with their money, but they can't lose money. Okay. Yeah. So the project needs to break even or make a bit of money. So the answer is...
Thank you.
Comment perhaps. Being a bit oblique, I apologise.
Any further questions, Councillor Mallard?
Thanks. Just a brief comment following on from Councillor Peterson. Yeah, I mean, I guess it's interesting that they've got a bit of a mechanism built in so that rather than just sort of maximising their profit, they're at least trying to provide a bit more affordable housing. I mean, again, noting this is public land that we're developing on, so getting at least 20% out of it is something. But yeah, questionable whether it would be nice to see bodies like Landcom push to do more. I think they are being bumped up towards a 30% target. But I guess to go to your other comment about what would lead a developer to do it if it was a private developer, absolutely nothing, which is why I pushed for a resolution that we got a couple of years ago to explore an affordable housing contribution scheme, which would actually require developers to contribute land or money that would go towards developing social and affordable housing. And I know more and more councils around the state are adopting and developing those plans. So I hope it's something we'll be looking at in this term. Thanks, because if we don't make the developers do it, yeah, they've got no incentive to do it.
Thank you.
So, Mr. Mayor, just a question to the CEO. I probably know the answer to this. Knowledge. So we forgo section 94.
Through you, Mr. Chair, no. We will have a voluntary planning agreement rather than straight section 94s. It's a little bit complex in that they're providing above and beyond in some areas, which will take away. So we're doing it with VPA is the answer, and which would come to you, of course.
Any further discussion? There being none, I'll put the motion. All in favour? Show of hands. Unanimous.
Can I ask a quick question before we go to the next one? Can we take like a little 2 break? Are we allowed to do that?
Yeah, can call a break at any time.
Can I
Move we adjourn for 5 minminutes, yeah.
Yes, okay.
We're just
Cricket German.
3 hours in.
Stop standing orders.
Yes.
Stop standing orders.
Want to run,
You have to
Council?
vote on it.
Have a short adjournment.
Yeah.
Against it now.
go to item 5.4, development application. Yes, note that Councillor McDonald is leaving the room. She has a conflict. DA 497/2024. Number one.
Happy to move it. I'm going to declare an interest. Leave the room. Pecuniary interest because of the Airbnb.
Whitten leaves the room at 9:01.
Okay.
Happy to move it.
Moved by Councillor Duffy. Have a seconder, Councillor Mallard. Any discussion, councillors? Councillor Kinghorn.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I just have a question about the parking. So they're 7 parking spaces short, and so they're paying a contribution of $126,601.23. What happens to that money?
We have Mr. Johnson approaching the lectern.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, where there's a shortfall of car parking, council has a contribution plan, 7-Eleven contribution plan that allows us to, I guess, offset the cost of providing car parking elsewhere in the city. It might actually go towards, for example, Ophir Car Park, for example, may have been constructed by council, and we may still have an outstanding, bill in relation to paying for that particular car park. That those funds go towards that sort of car parking arrangement. It all depends on how it's set up in terms of the contribution plan. But we also it may go into a fund to actually provide for additional car parking, like another level on Ophir Car Park, for example, or it might be to provide car parking elsewhere within the community to offset that demand as such. So,
okay. So it's quarantined for car parking.
It's quarantined specifically for car parking. Yeah.
Thank you,
Councillor Peterson.
Thank you. I support the motion. I feel, however, council has approved many hotel DAs in the short time I've been on council. We've been somewhat underwhelmed with the progress of building these. Is there any incentive that we can put in the DA to encourage the early and timely completion of the project, or else the applicant faces some kind of financial disincentive to be slow?
Through you, Mr. Chair. Sorry, Mr. Johnson. No, that would be breaching sort of trade practices and whatnot. No, we can't confuse planning with economic development, I'm afraid.
Fair enough.
Councillor Duffy.
Yeah, I'm happy to close the debate, Mr. Chairman. The thing I like about it is it's $29 million being acted upon, and we're going to see it get built. It creates jobs in our community, and I think that's fantastic.
Thank you, councillor. Okay, I'll put the motion. Show of hands for. Unanimous. Thank you. We'll ask. Hang on. There.
The 10 in the room. Next item.
Councillor Kinghorn, you're out for the next one?
I am.
Thank you. Item 5.5. Wait for Councillor Kinghorn to leave the room. Okay, Orange LEP, map amendment number 4, 26 Listerfield Drive. There's a resolution.
There's a recommendation.
Recommendation on page 266, moved by Councillor Whitten, seconded by Councillor Duffy. Any discussion, councillors? There being none, I'll ask for a show of hands. For? Unanimous. I'll ask Councillor Kinghorn to come back. Thank you, Councillor Kinghorn. Go to item 5.6, statement of investments. November 2024, there's a recommendation on page 315. Can I have somebody move the recommendation? Councillor Ruddy, seconder. Councillor Power. Any discussion, councillors? Councillor Kinghorn.
That's me again. Page 317. I just wanted to point out that the Ausbond Bank Bill Index line is missing the bit between February and March. It wasn't missing in the last one, so I just thought, just to make it accurate.
I just asked the CEO for a comment there.
Through you, Mr. Chair, may I take this opportunity to apologise for that oversight, but also to introduce Council's new Chief Financial Officer, John Thompson, to the meeting. John, if you could stand. And we're very pleased to have John join us from Weddenshire Council. Thanks very much. We'll correct that, Councillor, at the next meeting. Thank you. John did not write this report.
Councillor Ruddy.
Yeah, through you, Mr. Mayor, this is probably not going to be very loved, but can we have a look at I was just having a look at the term deposits that we've got, and there's quite a few with an interest rate under 3%. Is it possible to get some sort of analysis of the cost to break and refinance versus leaving them where they are? I know there's a few that'll mature in late 2025, which probably aren't 2025, which is probably not worthwhile looking at. But there was quite a few. There was a number that have more than 12 months on them. I realise that this practice does not please the bank, but if we have an opportunity to increase our bottom line, it's probably worth exploring.
Through Mr. Chair, we've done a lot of breaking over the last 18 months, encouraged particularly by Councillor Kinghorn. So we'll take that on board, and we will come back to you on that one. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Any further speakers? Being none, I'll put the motion. Show of hands for. Unanimous. Thank you to the staff who put that together.
Royal Bank of Canada.
Item 5.7, electric vehicle charging fees post-exhibition. There's a recommendation on page 341. Can I have someone to move the recommendation?
Happy to move
by
it.
Councillor McDonald, seconded by Councillor Mallard. Any speakers? Councillor Greenhalgh.
Just a quick typo, I think. The second line in the executive summary, which will be installed later in 2024. I'm thinking that should be 2025. Is that right?
Through Mr. Chair, I think actually most of them are in.
Okay.
We may have squeaked it in. I think Botanic Gardens are in. Out the back here. Okay. Okay, we're going to take a punt. Okay.
Perfect. Thank you.
We're close. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Peterson.
I support the recommendation. I note the grant funding did not allow for the level 3 charges. We see some community feedback talking those faster charges are much more desirable, so we'd love that to be a focus of any future grant exploration.
Thank you, Councillor. Any further speakers? Councillor Mallard.
Thanks. Yeah, happy to support it and happy to see that the charges are going in. I think I mentioned when we put these out on exhibition that I happened right on that weekend before the council meeting, ran into someone up at the Tesla superchargers at the village, and they were excited about having them at places like the Aquatic Centre. And I do think, to go to Councillor Peterson's point or comment, lower charges at places where people are going to spend a bit of time, like the Aquatic Centre, potentially arguably the Botanic Gardens, or if they're coming to the library or whatever or going to the theatre, for example. Yeah, hopefully they still provide a reasonable benefit. But yeah, obviously, higher power charges, yeah, if we can get the grants for them, that would be excellent as well.
Thank you. Councillor Whitten.
Just a question, Mr. Mayor, for curiosity.
In the papers.
I'm going to use the term fill it up.
347.
347.
There you go.
Thank you. Any other speakers? Being none, I'll put the motion. Show of hands for. Unanimous. We'll go to item 5.8, economic development strategy. There's a recommendation on page 349. Can I have somebody move the recommendation? Moved by Councillor Kinghorn, seconded by Councillor Power. Any speakers? Councillor Peterson.
Hey, one of the thanks, Mr. Mayor. One of the weaknesses that stood out to me on page 62 was the lack of CBD activation. But I couldn't see anything specific in the strategy document about addressing the rows of empty shops on Summer Street. There's no easy solution, but I would love many influence we have in the area, particularly on rental prices, to be part of the strategy. And the only other comment I would say was on page 356, employment rate of 1.5%, which I thought was much lower than I would have thought. It's great.
I'll ask the CEO for comment.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. We've got Director Sharp. We've also got our Economic Development Manager, Chris Rawlins, here tonight. So who would like to address those comments?
Invite and introduce the
Please.
Manager of Economic Development.
Thank you. Through you, Mr. Mayor, in terms of your question, Councillor Peterson, the plan for the economic development strategy is to outline a framework to develop some more detailed actions over the course of the next 2 terms. So from here, there's the opportunity under strategic objective 2.2, which is around, 2.1, which is about fostering an environment for small and medium businesses. The priorities there around encouraging a diverse business mix in the CBD and also developing support mechanisms to foster new business innovation will potentially pick up the opportunity to address CBD activation. It does mention the McNamara Lane business pods, which are going through an evaluation at the moment to look at what they might evolve into over time. So as part of that action planning for the next term, we can actually look at specific opportunities to address the CBD. But as you note, there are some substantial challenges there given the few number of landlords and the high rates. But that's partly what the McNamara Pod program's about.
Any further questions? There being none, I'll put the recommendation. Show of hands for. Unanimous. Thank you, councillors. Item 5.9, restricted shopping trading days. There is a recommendation on page 389. Can I have somebody move the recommendation? Moved by Councillor Greenhouse, seconded by Councillor Ruddy. Any discussion? Councillor King.
Sorry, can I just check? I own a business that is exempt from these rules. Does that mean I should have declared an interest? Because I didn't.
It's a matter for you.
It's only acknowledging the report.
I think acknowledge is probably the giveaway.
It's okay.
Thank
you, Councillor. Yep. Councillor Greenhouse.
Just through you, Mr Mayor, just a couple of typos. The policy and governance implications, we've got on restricted training day and instead of trading, and then over the page as well with the supporting information, that same typo is there. If we could just get that corrected.
Thank you, Councillor. Any further discussion? There being none, I'll put the recommendation. Show of hands for. Unanimous. We've done 5.10. Let's go to 5.11, applications for event sponsorship. Recommendation on page 408. Can I have somebody move the recommendation? Moved by Councillor Peterson. Seconded by Councillor Power.
May I declare a conflict of interest, please? So it's, yes, I have a long-term association with the Orange Mountain Bike Club, including some volunteer roles post-quadriplegia as their grants officer and with first aid. However, when I got elected to council, I resigned from any formal roles with them and I can't ride anymore, so I'm quite comfortable that I can stay in the room and vote.
Thank you, Councillor. So we've got a mover by Councillor Peterson, a second by Councillor Power, was it? Thank you. Any speakers? Councillor, question, yes?
Probably through you, Mr Mayor, to the CEO or the Director. Given that we're now having to dip into other pots of money, what is our sort of strategy for more applications?
And through you, Mr Mayor, I did indicate in the paper that we feel we could take some funds up to $10,000 from the Sister City current fund without impacting, knowing that council has been in caretaker mode for the first part of the year and we're approaching Christmas. There's unlikely to be any Sister City funds required up until perhaps February when the committee forms. So therefore we're pretty comfortable that we could use $10,000 of what's budgeted in there. That will take us a long way. Obviously we're recommending that we use some of those funds tonight if you were to go forward with the recommendation. There are other things that we would look at close to the events. We'll have a few events that will have been closed out by then. We'll know if we have any surplus then. But at this stage, hoping that the $10,000 that's sitting in the Sister City would be enough to get us through till the end of the year.
Can I say something, Mr.
No. Yes, because you can.
Yeah, I think just my thoughts on it are that it's not for staff to block applications. I think we will continue to bring them.
Absolutely.
And find the offset money. It's for you to vote on them. We'll do our best. Yeah. Yeah. Sorry, Director. Thank you. Welcome to agree.
I absolutely agree.
Any further discussion, councillors? Councillor Ruddy.
No, I've spoken a lot tonight. I'm just really excited. So this is just a conversation that I had today, and I know that right now, I guess this is just the overall event sponsorship thing. We're often approving sponsorships without enough clarity around their long-term economic and social benefits, and I understand it's great to say yes to everything, but it's not always feasible. And so I would just like to reiterate what Councillor Peterson has already raised regarding a review of our event sponsorship process. I know that this is being addressed, And I think that it's a crucial step in ensuring that we're allocating ratepayers' monies transparently and effectively. And I'm looking forward to seeing clearer evidence of how sponsorship funds are being spent and how these deliver measurable and economic and social benefits for our community. And I'm hoping that the changes that we see in the new year with the new budget will strike a better balance for supporting events that enrich our community, but also ensuring that we're delivering real value.
Thank you. Yes, Mallard.
Thanks, Mayor. Yeah, happy to support these sponsorships. And just wanted to note, it's really great that we've got a leg of a national mountain bike series coming, and it demonstrates the success we can have with promoting our mountain biking opportunities in the region, which are purely within the state forest areas and don't go anywhere near the state conservation area. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor. Any further speakers?
Not into it.
Being none, I'll put the motion. Show of hands all for. Unanimous. Thank you, councillors. Item 5.12, Register of Disclosures, Interests of Councillors and Designated Persons. There's a recommendation on page 427. Can I have a mover? Moved by Councillor Donald, seconded by Councillor Whitten. Any discussion? Put the motion. A show of hands for. Unanimous. Item 5.13, Register of Delegations, Council, Committees, Chief Executive Officer and Specific Appointments. There's a recommendation on page 429. Mover. Moved by Councillor Greenhouse, seconded by Councillor McDonald. Any discussion? Councillor Kinghorn.
Oh, thank you, Mr Mayor. Page 430, update, deleted, a code of conduct panel of conduct reviewers is appointed, no longer required. What does that mean?
Page, sorry?
430.
430. I might ask a colleague here.
I wasn't sure if it just meant that there's now just one person doing it instead of a panel, or...
Okay, through you, Mr Chair, we still have a panel. See, I think Janetta Constantine does this very well.
Through you, Mr Mayor. So previously there was a requirement to have a panel of conduct reviewers that all dealt with a matter together.
A panel of council staff?
They could have been independents or council staff. So then it progressed to, so this is a historic delegation, unfortunately, that was never removed. So then they went to a panel of conduct reviewers that you would then send to one person to make that assessment, and that still stands now. However, our joint organisation has recently done an expression of interest process and come up with a new panel and sought advice from the office to the effect that that doesn't have to come to council to be confirmed, and that we just have a conduct panel that operates in the background, and should we receive any code of conduct complaints, then we just refer them to that panel. So unfortunately, I think this one was a legacy that just sat in those delegations for such a long time that was never removed.
Okay, it just looked odd. Thank you.
Any further speakers? Being none, I'll put the recommendation. Show of hands for. Unanimous.
We got that.
Item 5.14, Strategic Policy Review post-exhibition is a recommendation. Thank you, Councillor. On page 455, moved by Councillor Whitten, seconded by Councillor Power. Any discussion? There being no discussion, I'll ask for a show of hands for. Unanimous. Item 5.15, Strategic Policy Reviews. There's a recommendation on page 477. Can I have somebody move it? Moved by Councillor Greenhouse. Can I have a seconder? Councillor Peterson. Any discussion? Being no discussion, I'll put the motion. All in favour? Or the recommendation, I should say. Yes, so the motion. My all for? Thank you. Unanimous. Item 5.16, responses to questions taken on notice. This is a late agenda item. Councillors?
Do you want to borrow my... Councillor? Sorry? 2 items in there.
We're looking at 516. There's a recommendation on page 3 of the late items. I've somebody move. Moved by Councillor Mallard, second by Councillor Judge. Any discussion, councillors? Councillor Ruddy.
Is there a timeline for being rolled out? Sorry, through you, Mr. Mayor, to the CEO. Is there is there a timeline for this kind of? Probably not, because it's a big.
Through Mr. Chair, for what? Sorry.
Oh, sorry for the what are we doing?
5.16 for
Yes.
Which one? Sorry.
The water smart meters.
Yeah.
Sorry.
Sorry, my brain is.
Through you, Mr. Chair. Sorry.
Yeah.
Through you, Mr. Chair, Mr.
Yeah,
Greenham will answer the question.
Thank you, Mr. Greenham.
Thank you. The original intention was to roll it out as we replace normal water meters, which are generally done on a 12 to 15 year cycle. So the timeline would be 12 to 15 years. However, we're a couple of years in. We've only got about 10% of the city covered at the moment. So we recognise that we need to speed this up. The staff have set an ambitious target of achieving this over the next 5 years. So that may mean going out to private enterprise to do it, because one of the issues we've had as we've employed new staff into the water and sewer team, there's been, as we employ one or two new staff, there's generally been one or two of the existing staff either move to other areas of council or leave council at all. So there's been a shortage in the water and sewer operational staff for a while.
Thank you. Director, you satisfied with the response, councillor?
Yes.
Any Councillor Whitten?
Fair to say, Mr. Greenham, that any new dwellings have these automatic.
Absolutely.
Any further discussion? Councillor Peterson.
Forgive me, Director Greenham, just 3 questions. On page 25, there's quite a large increase in revenue from age and disability services compared to last year. 2214 compared to 196.
Councillor, I think you're on, we're not on that item yet, Councillor.
Oh, I got so excited. My apologies.
I'd like to see Mr. Greenham answer it, though.
I can answer that very easily. I'll ask the director to come up and.
Councillor Duffy.
Yeah, thank you. My question is regarding to unrestricted reserves. It sounds as though we've got none, and yet we've got a credit facility with the Commonwealth Bank for 5 million.
Through you, Mr. Chair, yeah, the answer is somewhat oblique. We don't have none. We have a situation at the moment with a timing issue with grants and the major projects. So it's very hard at the moment to say exactly how much we've got. We've just got, the next item is the audited financial statements, and in there it's more appropriate to answer this question with those. As you'll remember for when you were finance chair, we've got this mix of last year's audited numbers and this year's budget coming up. So it's that timing issue. Councillor, thanks for the question.
Any further discussion, councillors?
A few minutes to read 40 pages.
Doing well, councillor. There being no other speakers, I will put the motion. Show of hands for. Unanimous. Going to item 5.17, 2023 financial statements, and I might ask our new Chief Financial Officer to come forward and just chat about this item, if that's okay.
The councillors, Rick is meeting tomorrow to consider the financial statements as well, and the audit is coming to a close. So I've asked John to prepare his I guess, a verbal opinion, just coming in fresh of what John thinks of our financial situation from the last financial year. Thank you, John.
Yeah, thank you, Chair, and thank you, Mr. Mayor. So this is one of the more exciting topics. So strap yourselves in. Financial statements. They've just literally, we've got some numbers here to present tonight. We've got a preliminary result, surplus of 38,815,000, and then before if you strip back operating grants and contributions for capital purposes, there's a deficit of about 11 million. First thing. Second point I'd like to make is, I'm just reading on the statement here. most of the numbers are pretty similar from prior years, so no real differences. I will point out grants and contributions, so that's 20 million to about 50 million. You can go and have a look at the note there, but effectively that you're probably fully aware of the items going on at the moment with the note here. So you've got about, obviously there's about, of that there's about 10 million parks and sports grounds, so we know that's the new precinct. Got transport, roads and other bridges, so it's capital for about 12 million. And you've got some dedications from subdivisions other than 7-Eleven, about 13 million. So they're kind of the items there. Bigger move this year. It's not uncommon, it's just that when you do, you'll have a big jump, but then obviously you reverse that back out, and that's why it sort of looks like there's a big difference between the 38 million and then the other. That's all I wanted to say on the income statement. Flick over the page, statement of comprehensive income. Effectively what you're doing is adding in other things that aren't operating, such as the assets. That's pretty standard, again, for based on our 1.5 billion of infrastructure, property, plant and equipment. That's there are some increases and some decreases through the asset classes, but on the whole, there's no real surprises there. Go then through to the balance sheet, statement of financial position. The cash, first line item, cash is pretty similar. You look at the investments, you've got current and non-current, but I like to look at them together. You've got the current that's gone up by about 33. You've also got the non-current that's gone down by about 30. So on balance, it's line ball. We're just so no real changes from last year there. Receivables, similar number, higher. But that's because we've now got included this year some. Going down, investments, we talked about that, IP, P&E, so that's infrastructure, property, plant and equipment. So that's about 1.5 mil, so it's 1.5 bill now, gone up by about 72 million. Again, that's added, so you've got a revaluation up, you've got assets that are added, work in progress that's been capitalised into it, but you've also got appreciation taken back off. So all of those numbers flow through to.
John, can I stop you for just 1 second? So our asset base is hit $1.5 billion. Wow, it's huge, isn't it? So much to look after. Sorry,
Exactly.
To interrupt. A lot.
Take that on notice.
Mr. Mayor, can I interrupt one more time, John? 9:30, we need to ask.
Yes, I need somebody to continue. Moved by Councillor O'Donnell, seconded by Councillor Whitten. All happy to continue? Show of hands. Yep. Okay, let's keep going. Thank you.
John. Don't come back until next year.
Don't go away.
You finished. Yeah. No, at 9:30 we have to extend the meeting, John.
Oh, right. Okay. Right.
You want to start extra big. You thought you off the hook, didn't you?
I'm pretty well there. The other thing, statement of cash flow would be the other thing I would make a comment on. So really the numbers through there in terms of you've broken into 3 sections. So your operating activities, cash from operating activities, then what do you do with that cash? So you then got investing activities. They can go up or down, and then you can also finance, financial activities from those funds as well. So basically, net flows from operating activities last year 53.8 mil, this year 53.4 mil, very similar number. So that's firstly. So there's no real red flags there. It's pretty consistent from last year to this year. That's the first thing, and it's also a very favourable result. So I mean, it's effectively you're raising the cash. 53 million in operating cash, and then you go and spend it by investing or spending it in ways. So really they're the only comments that I wanted to make. Pretty good set of results. No real red flags, I think, for concerned about. But happy to take questions now or on notice.
What's the ARIC chairman? I haven't had a chance.
I can.
They had access to.
Yeah, I can comment. Robert got these about 10 days ago and said generally what a strong position council was in. Then went on with a series of about 20 questions, that the detail of which we'll go through tomorrow. But his comment initially was what a good position. We've got a lot of work to do on assets in particular. This year we've got to do a 5-year revaluation of all road assets. Just goes on, all infrastructure goes on and on. 1.5. The great local government problem, and the problem of adding new assets to operational load. Sorry, Mr. Mayor.
Are we in the? Is there much?
Mr. Chair, yes, but after 4 years, including COVID, we've now started the process of debt. It's quite gentle, but we're starting that. We're not, it's the last bill that people play, and
we're probably higher than, we're probably higher than some other councils. But that said, we are working on it now. I've already had some.
Any further questions of the Chief Financial Officer, Councillor Peterson?
Thank you, and I'll sorry for jumping in earlier. On page 25, the large increase in the age and disability services income or revenue at the top of the page, was that because of some sort of grant, or what was the change there?
Mr. Maunder perhaps could answer this one.
I can.
Through you, Mr. Chair, I had the advantage of Councillor Peterson asking me that question before, so I did some research.
I was happy to send you in advance.
John wasn't able to take advantage of coding error. So last year it was recorded against grants. So the income that we receive from the various residents and the government agencies was recorded on the grants. This year we've recorded it correctly. So that was just the amounts are fairly similar. It was just a coding error, but it looks significant when you compare it year to year.
The other two that you knew I was going to ask, page 36, we've disposed of $20 million worth of assets at a loss. What was that referring to? And then page 46, it says we're not recognising the Red Fleet assets. Didn't understand that, because I'm aware there's some kind of long-term controversy about having the assets on council books. If we just couldn't include them, that'd be great, but I can't imagine it's that simple. It must be some reason why more complex than that.
Through you, Mr. Chair, did you want to talk to the Red Fleet, David?
Mr. Greenham, through you, Mr. Mayor, if that's all right.
Not sure I'll move.
All of them up before we know it.
All three of you up there.
Comfortable up here.
Look at this.
It is. We'll take the question on the next question on the.
Just in regard to the Red Fleet, when it's, for some councils, it's considered a significant item for our council because we're a city council and there's not too much Red Fleet in comparison to our total budget. It's considered insignificant and we're allowed to leave it off the register.
Well, thank you, and I'm afraid as I've got the mic, I have to leave. Got people out the front that have already an hour more than they normally go, so Merry Christmas, everyone.
We'll answer that one tomorrow at ARIC.
Thank you, Councillor.
You at ARIC.
I have Councillor Peterson leaving the meeting at 9:35. Any further questions of the Chief Executive Officer before he sits down? There being none, I'll need somebody to move the recommendation. Can I have somebody? Councillor Whitten, and seconded by Councillor Dedman. Show of hands, all for? Unanimous.
Thanks, John.
Okay, councillors, the Chief Executive Officer will now advise council if any written submissions have been received relating to the item advertised for consideration by closed meeting of the Orange City Council.
No such written submissions have been received, sir.
In accordance with the Local Government Act 1993, the Local Government General Regulation 2021, in the opinion of Chief Executive Officer, the following business is of kind as referred to under section 10A2 of the Act and should be dealt with in confidential session of council meeting closed to the press and the public. Following items: 6.1, 23-24, 4th and 24/25 first quarter water consumption at 15 Yolanta Place, Orange, and 6.2, 23/24 second and third water consumption sewer charges at 109 Ploughman's Lane. As these items are classified confidential under the provisions of section 10A2 of the Local Government Act 1993, which permits the meeting to be closed to the public for business relating to B, open brackets, close brackets, the personal hardship of any resident or ratepayer. 6.3, proposed sale part lots 402 and 403 DP 123601 and tender 6.4 F 3590-5 Gosling Creek Dam Engineering Assessment and Risk Mitigation Option Study. As these items are classified confidential under provisions of section 10A2 of the Local Government Act 1993, which permits a meeting to be closed to the public business relating to open brackets D, close brackets, I, commercial information of confidence nature that would, if disclosed, prejudice the commercial position of the person who supplied it. 6.5, working kind agreement for Shirley Road construction, fronting lots 1 and A, DP 381937, and lot DP 630681, and lot DP 1212446. As this item is classified confidential on the provision of section 10A, open brackets 2, close brackets of the Local Government Act 1993, which permits the meeting to be closed to the public business relating to open brackets C, close brackets, information that would, if disclosed, confer a commercial advantage to a person whom council is conducting or proposed to conduct business. 6.6, submission redaction report of the 17 December 2024. As this item is classified confidential on provision of section 10A2 of the Local Government Act 1993, which permits a meeting to be closed to the public for business relating to, in bracket E, information that would, if disclosed, prejudice the maintenance of law. Can I have somebody move and second that we go into closed council? Second by Councillor McDonald, seconded by Councillor Ruddy. Show of hands, please. Unanimous.